to the Ashland School Committee meeting for September 13th, 2012. I'm going to start by reading our vision statement. The Ashland Public Schools is committed to being at the forefront of student achievement by preparing students to be college and career ready while promoting independence, respect, and critical thinking skills necessary to succeed as problem solvers in the 21st century. This meeting is being recorded by WACA Cable TV. And the agenda tonight will open with the opportunity for the public to be heard. We'll have a recognition of achievement. We do not have minutes, so we won't be reviewing minutes. We're going to have a shift in the agenda. We'll take gifts and donations, and then we'll go to our special topics and have an introduction of new staff, a presentation from our principals regarding opening day, and then we're going to insert the superintendent's report as number 3. We will continue down the agenda to school committee report on summer planning session. We'll have a discussion regarding the school committee goals. We have a policy update with regard to gender identity, and we do not have an update with the other two, or we have discussion only.
Discussion and update on 3.3.
On 3.3, which is advertising on school property. We'll have an update from Dr. Catherine Stickney with regard to curriculum and instruction, and we'll have a discussion with regard to action items and future agenda items, and school committee members will provide their updates, and then we plan to adjourn. So do I have a motion to change the agenda items and move the superintendent's report to number 3 under special topics?
So moved.
Second. Okay, second, all in favor? Aye. Aye, okay. That's 5-0. And so, if anyone is here to speak to any topic that's not on the agenda, you're welcome to come forward. Seeing none, we will move to the superintendent's recognition of achievement.
And we have none that we will be doing this evening. We will be starting that process at the next school committee meeting.
Excellent. So we will move down to Mrs. Duran with gifts and donations.
Okay. We do have a number of them this evening. We have 3 grants that have been received by Ashland. One is the Special Education 240 grant for $537,918. The Quality Full Day Kindergarten grant for $67,512. And the Edwin Tablet Pilot for $20,000. And then we have gifts and donations from AFCEA. I'm not sure what that stands for. Armed Forces Communications and Electronics Association out of the Lexington Concord chapter has donated 110 rockets that will be used here as part of the middle school STEM program with an amount or value estimated at about $1,000. We have an anonymous donation of computers, a total of 90 used PCs, as well as keyboards, mice, and power strips for an estimated total of $9,000. Another anonymous donation of 130 used computers and desktops for an estimated value of about $13,000. D. Benedictus has donated a Sony TV worth about $500 to the technology department. The Connect Community Church sponsors community outreach programs each year and have chosen to help our elementary teachers as one of their programs this year. So they have given us $1,400 for the Warren and Mendez teacher wish list items. We have a donation of $579 from Fireflies. This is the amount of the food and beverages that were purchased at the site walk up at the high school fields. So we thank Fireflies.
Yeah. It goes to maintenance account. Can you
Goes
specify that?
to a gift account. I'll follow up with you later.
Thank you.
Oh, fields, gift and donation fields. Follett Educational Services, $12.49 for the Mendez books that were sold back to them. Planet Aid, our Q2 distribution is $191.30, so thank everyone for putting all your donations in the bins in all our schools. We appreciate that. And from Target, we have 3 checks, one for $750.30, which is going to the Warren Elementary School. A check in the amount of $381.99, which is going to the Mendez School. And a check for $374.85, which is going to the high school. And that's all of them.
just ask a question? Yeah, the third one, 20,000 from the Edwin, what's that one again?
It's a new grant. You wanna explain it?
Sure, would you like me to wait till later, or?
Sure, yeah, whenever, thank you. Sounded different.
Yeah.
It's brand new.
So do we have a motion to accept the gifts and donations as presented?
So moved.
And second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, that moves us down to our special topics, which we're going to start with the introduction of our new staff.
Thank you. I'd like to start by calling up, but we're going to start with our youngest folks first. At Pitaway School, I'm going to ask Principal White to come forward, and she will introduce some of her new staff at Pitaway. So we'll turn it over to you.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Welcome.
First, I'd like to introduce one of our newest members of the program in our infant toddler program, our new infant toddler room. So I'd like to introduce Rebecca Tingley. Rebecca, if you could stand, please. Rebecca just recently completed her Bachelor of Science degree from Framingham State University, and she is also certified as an infant toddler teacher, and she comes to us with several years of experience working with young children, and we're very excited to have Rebecca on. Thank you, Rebecca. Also, I'd like to introduce Megan Robshaw. Megan is not necessarily new to the program, but this is a new position for her. Megan was formerly an assistant teacher, and she is now a preschool teacher, taking over a position that was left vacated by one of our former teachers. So we welcome Megan. She has a new name, Robshaw, because she was just recently married this past summer.
Congratulations.
Megan has her undergraduate degree from Fitchburg State University in early childhood education, and she most recently completed her master's degree from Framingham State University in English as a second language. Next, I'd like to introduce Cheryl Hatch. Cheryl comes to us. She is a special education ESP, and she has her associate's degree from Mass Bay Community College in early childhood education, and she comes to us with 4 years' experience working with children of preschool age. Thank you, Cheryl. And then I'd like to introduce Marie Melnick. Marie is also an ESP with special education. Marie has 6 years' experience working with preschool age children, and she has also taken many opportunities in professional development. So thank you very much, Marie.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate
Thank
that.
you,
Welcome.
everybody.
Wonderful.
And it's my distinct pleasure to introduce our newest, one of our newest administrators, in fact, 2 at the same building tonight, and I'll leave it to Principal Kyra to introduce his vice principal. We are delighted to have Mike Kyra join us as the new principal at Warren School. As you know, we went through quite a search, and I think when we interviewed him, it was one of those moments where he wanted to hire him before he walked out the door. We just knew he was the right fit. He comes to us with a lot of experience, but a real passion for working with children at the age group that he's working with. He has extensive special education experience, which is very, very helpful. He's very fluent with RTI, good understanding of PBIS, RTI, all the things that we need at Warren School. So it's my pleasure to welcome him tonight to our table. So Principal Kyra, if you can come and introduce your new staff, that would be wonderful.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us here tonight. It's my pleasure to introduce our new assistant principal at Warren, Ms. Marjorie Condon. Mrs. Condon joins us from the Concord Public Schools. She's been a teacher for many years, teacher of language art, and also a language arts and curriculum specialist. Most recently, she completed her principal internship through the MESPA program, and she was also the administrator of the Concord Summer School program in 2011. Mrs. Condon has a master's degree in education from Cambridge College.
Great, welcome.
We have a long list of new staff here, so please bear with me. Amanda Dietzel is our grade 1 teacher. Amanda has been a Title I teacher in Ashland since 2011. She holds a master's degree in education as a reading specialist from Endicott College. Megan Clark joins us, coming over from Pitaway this year as a kindergarten teacher. She's been in the Pitaway program since 2006, and she's joining us to come teach our kindergartners. We're very excited to have Megan on board with us. She has a master's degree from BC. Miss Laura Peters is a long-term substitute in grade 1. She was also a long-term sub at Warren last year in grade 1, and she's come back for another year with us to be this year in 2012-2013 school year. Samantha Florist joins our staff as a special education teacher. Samantha has also been in the district serving as one of our ABA specialists. And she comes over and joins us, and we're very happy to have Sam on board as well. Kelly Daly has joined us as a long-term substitute ESP. Kelly is a Master of Arts in Elementary Education from Simmons College and a certificate in moderate special needs. Cheryl Noel is officially now our music teacher. She's our .6 music teacher. She was a long-term sub last year in Warren, but now she's officially our full-time teacher. Rachel Davidson is with us. She's our Title I math teacher. Rachel has been in the district since 2007 as a teaching assistant. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Education, a Master's degree in Special Education from Framingham State. Another person who's in a new role is Amber Bradley. She's joining us as the RAP kindergarten teacher. Amber has been in the system working with EDP program, also in Pitaway, and she comes over to join us now in the RAP program, and she's servicing all of our young students. Ms. Robin Richards has joined us as an ABA. She brings a great deal of experience working as an ABA outside of the public school sector. She has a bachelor's degree from Northeastern University and a master's degree in administration from Boston College. Liz Secretore holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Framingham State College and a certification in elementary ed from Framingham State University, and she joins us as an ESP. She actually did her student teaching last year in Warren, so it's nice to see her return to where she was last year. Miss Monique Smith joins the Warren community after a lot of service in different areas throughout the Ashland Public Schools. She's worked many years in Pitaway, and she's transferred to Warren this year to work as an assistant in our kindergarten program. Elise Wilkinson is a long-term sub in grade 1. Elise has been a teaching assistant ESP at Warren for the past 8 years, and it's great that she's able to have her own classroom this year as a grade 1 long-term substitute. She's a Bachelor of Arts degree from Framingham State, and she is a licensed elementary education teacher, grades 1 through 6. And finally, Mary Zambuno is an lifelong Ashland resident, and she has been working as an aide and an ESP. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from Merrimack College, a master's degree in elementary ed from American International College in Springfield, Mass. Thank you very much for welcoming our many new staff members.
Thank you. And from Warren, we move to Mendez, and we would ask Principal Irvin if he could come up and introduce his staff, please.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. We also have a lengthy list of new members of the Mendez family, so bear with me. First off, we have Kim Connor. Kim is our new grade 3 teacher. Kim is a longtime ESP in the district, and she got her undergraduate degree and master's degree from Fitchburg State College, and she's duly certified in elementary education and special education. Tim Crowley is our new grade 4 teacher. Tim previously worked as an ESP for the Dover-Sherburne District. He received both his undergraduate and his master's degree from Merrimack College, and Tim is certified in elementary education and soon to be certified in special education. Becky Bertolino is our new grade 5 teacher. Becky also was a longtime ESP in the district. Becky got her undergraduate degree from Westfield State and her first master's degree from Framingham State. She's duly certified in elementary education and special education, and she soon will be certified in literacy instruction from Framingham State. Portia Pasillo is our new inclusion special education teacher. Portia has been an ESP here in the district for 10 years. She got her undergraduate work in education from Framingham State, and she recently got her master's degree in special education from American International College. We also have Kate Narita joining us this year at the Mendez School. She is working 2 days a week at Mendez, and we're sharing her with Mr. Grubb in the middle school, where she comes up here 3 days per week. So Kate is a welcomed addition to our staff also. Karen DeModica is one of the ESPs who will be helping Kate servicing our ELL population in both buildings. She also will be working in Mendez and in the middle school. Susan Nash is returning to Mendez after a few years away as our Title I tutor, and Susan got her undergraduate degree from the University of Vermont. Sharon Bryant is joining us as an ESP, and she did her undergraduate and master's degree work in special education through Suffolk University. Chris Mantos is coming on full-time. Chris was with us for a part-time position last year. Chris is coming on full-time as an ESP, and he got his undergraduate work at Westfield State. Jane Murphy, who is here this evening, Jane is a longtime sub in the school district. Jane is joining us, and she did her undergraduate work at Simmons College. Lindsay Shorey, another substitute in the district, is joining us at Mendez as an ESP, and Lindsay did her undergraduate work at Salve Regina down in Newport. Brianna Morrow recently joined us. She worked with the Dover Sherburne School District for 4 years, both as an ESP and as a long-term sub in grade 2, and she is also getting her certification as a literacy teacher from Framingham State College. Diane Granger will be joining us as an ESP, full-time ESP. She did her work at Framingham State University. And our new computer integration teacher, Carolyn Brault, will be joining us the end of the month. She has worked for the Worcester Public Schools for the past 22 years in various roles as a 4th grade teacher, a 2nd grade teacher, an instructional coach, and a data coach for the district. So we're very excited to have all of our new members. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
And we ask for our middle school principal, Principal Grubb, to come up and introduce us to your new hires.
Absolutely. I would say, first of all, it's pretty cool I get to sit on the comfy chairs. So, that's pretty neat. I got stuck on the wood ones last year, so.
Moving up and down.
Well, maybe, we'll see.
Kind of adjust our school committee.
Yeah. Anyways, it's my pleasure to be here to introduce, we don't have as many new staff as the schools before you, but first, in our presence, we have Mrs. Beth Deneen, who comes to us as the new assistant principal at the middle school. And when Ryan Quigley left in early August, we were very happy for Ryan, but we also had this fear factor, like, oh my goodness, what are we gonna do in early August to find someone? And we didn't hire Beth on the way out the door, but when she came back in the second time, and so we wanna hold on to her, and she has talked about hitting the ground running, really made herself very immersed in middle school. Seems like Beth's been here for a long time, and not only are the kids benefiting from being here, but teachers are already benefiting from her expertise as well. So we welcome Beth. We're glad to have you here. And everyone else must be home lesson planning. So the other ones we have tonight, we have Keith Truesdale, who is a 7th grade special education teacher. Keith has over 19 years of instructional experience. Most recently, he was a special education teacher in Framingham. Prior to that, he worked in the Lab Collaborative for several years. He holds a master's degree in education from Wellesley College and is licensed to teach moderate special needs grades 5 to 12. Claudia Bennett, we share with the Mendez. She's somewhat new to us, but certainly not new to Ashland. And we have her for point 8 and point 2 to the Mendez, and she is our kind of our STEM teacher at the middle school, really helping kick off that program. And if you look in the skies tomorrow throughout the day, you may see some of those rockets. Hopefully not in your yard, but they'll be up in the sky over the middle school. And then, as Greg mentioned, we share Karen DeModica, who is an ELL tutor, and then Jim will talk about how we share one of our team chairs. So that's it at the middle school. So we're very happy to have all of them aboard with us.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
And now we'd like to ask our principal at the high school, Principal Adams, if he can come up and introduce and speak for a moment or two
Great.
about his new staff.
Thank you again. It's good to be back a little farther away this time. Nothing against the school, but new year. But it's exciting. We have a couple people who are not here with us tonight, and I'll start with introducing them. Mandy Brava comes to us. She's an Ashland High School grad as well, but she's one of our ESPs. Mandy holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Social Work and Counseling from Franklin Pierce University. In addition, Catherine Dickin is a new math teacher at the high school, and she comes to us with many years of experience, most recently at Hopkinton High School as a long-term sub last year, and taught for a number of years there before she had her children and decided to stay home for a while. and she holds a Bachelor of Science from Framingham State. I'll start by introducing Mr. Brian LaHare in the back. Brian actually came to us in January, and he is our study skills teacher. Brian holds degrees, undergraduate and graduate degree in history from UMass Amherst. Next we have Rhonda Istvan. Rhonda is a chemistry and physics teacher at the high school, and she comes to us from Medway High School most recently, where she was a part-time chemistry and physics teacher. She holds a master's degree in analytical science and a doctorate in biochemistry. Next we have Jeannie Nisbet. Jeannie is, as Mr. Grubb alluded to, she's .8 at the high school and .2 at the middle school as our team chair. She comes to us from the Advanced Math and Science Academy Charter School in Marlborough, where she was the special education director and coordinator. She has 17 years experience as a special education teacher and team chair, holds a master's in intensive special needs and a CAGS in special ed administration. So we have Holly LeBlanc. Holly's in the back there. Holly is one of our special ed teachers, a new special ed teacher in moderate special needs. She comes to us from the Guild for Human Services, where she was a behavioral teacher of special education. She holds a master's in education from Bay Path and is licensed to teach severe special needs K through 12. And that is our new staff for this year at Ashland High School.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You want to go I asked Principal Adams if he could stay put for a moment, because at this point in time, what we would like to do is hear a bit of an opening, a statement, if you will, from each of our principals on their, the start of their school year. So at this point in time, we're going to actually work backwards because he's already sitting here. So we'll start with the high school and then, of course, middle school, Mendez, Warren, and Midway. So Principal Adams, if you don't mind, please.
I don't mind at all. Actually, I'd be remiss if I didn't actually introduce Ankit Kumar here, one of our seniors, as a new representative on the board as well.
Welcome.
So welcome to Ankit. So certainly, I've made this comment to a number of teachers as well as you. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop because the year has actually started out very, very well, and I've had numerous teachers comment that the beginning of the year was one of the smoothest transitions into a new year that they've been a part of in the past 5 or 6 years. And it says a lot, I think, about the teachers themselves, the students understanding expectations, as well as my two assistants, Ms. St. Kerr and Mr. DiGirolamo, where they really prepare a lot during the summer to get the year started off on a good foot. We've had convocation for the seniors a week ago. We've done a number of large PBIS activity last week, numerous class meetings already with the freshmen, and they have just been a wonderful addition to the school. It's been a really nice interaction, especially with the PBS activity, where we infuse seniors, the freshmen, the juniors, and the sophomores in an activity together to get to know one another. So certainly, again, I want to be very cautious, but it's gone quite well. So certainly if you have any questions about the opening, welcome to ask, but I think, like I said, I want to be cautious and keep it quiet.
How's the new driving pattern?
Yeah, you know what, that's a good thing too. The new pattern has helped definitely in the mornings. We noticed that the traffic is not on East Union anymore. In the afternoons, we've still got a little bit of work to do, partly because when the parents come around and the students are coming out, it's still coordinating how many cars we can let go at a time before the buses can get out. But I think it's made the transition of leaving better because it's not that far to drive. I think it's been a safer route. I would caution people when they're watching this at home, please do not drive through the construction area. It's fenced off for a reason. We've had numerous cars try to skirt the traffic in the afternoons and in the morning, and it's very dangerous. And I'm now standing there in the afternoon, so maybe you want to hit me, but hey, at least it'll keep people out of the construction area. But it's gone well. Yeah.
And I just wanted to note too, a special thanks to your staff for hosting our high school introduction to Atlas the other day, and we'll go into a little bit more in depth, but we really appreciate that. And also for hosting so many people on our second day back, and I know that was an inconvenience to some of your teachers, because we were utilizing their classrooms the day before they went in, and just really, really appreciate that. And a notable convocation, how fun was that? Oh my gosh, the energy in that gymnasium was just wonderful. So that was just I thought a wonderful activity to take, and I really enjoyed being there. So thank you for the invitation. Thank you.
Thanks.
Principal Graham.
Well, I think like Mr. Adams, the middle school is off to a wonderful start, and I was talking to Ms. Deneen, I've shared this comment with a couple of the school committee members, is when you picture what you'd like your middle school students to be like when you go into administration, that's what's happening at the middle school now. The 6th graders, what a wonderful group of kids. Even, I mean, we're doing the PBIS assemblies, and we're really talking about respect and you know, care and concern for others, but we with this group, that's just validating things they're already doing. So for all parents listening, and I'm not saying it because several school committee members have members of their families in our school, but they really are. They're a wonderful bunch of kids, and I think before last year, the middle school had gone through a lot of change over a short period of time, and coming back this year, even though there's a little bit of change, there's some consistency there, and I think that's put people a little more at ease. I think so. The school year has gone up to a really good start. The teachers are, you know, really roaring to go, and we've got a STEM program now, and we've got rockets blasting upwards hopefully tomorrow, and just a lot of exciting things happening. So we're looking forward to a really good year. It's so far so good.
Any questions of Principal Graham?
When are the rockets going up?
Well, they originally were going to send 200 in the air at once, but we came to our senses and said that's probably not a good idea. So.
Well, if they go in the air, it's a good idea.
Well, good, right. So right now we've kind of, as we said, the STEM program is an evolving program that we're going to do safety first with, and we're going by grades, and they're being done in science classes. So Kristen Mahoney, the red team, will be launching tomorrow throughout science classes. So it'll be, you know, 8 or 10 rockets during a block, and they're going to be standing way far away, very safe, with goggles on, with fences protecting, and I think we said everything but a hazmat suit. And so, you know, they'll be extremely safe. And then, so throughout the day, we'll have these little fun things fly up, and then, you know, they'll go down. The next group will go down to the STEM lab with Miss Bennett and help build those, and then they'll go up, and you know, it'll snow, and then we'll send some more up in the spring. And but they're excited about it. So it'll be going on throughout the fall.
Mr. Graham, how did the change in schedule go, you know, the homeroom in the morning, and that was kind of a big shift for the kids who had been there.
It was. I mean, I think I'm interested to look at our tardy rate. I think our tardy rate has gone down because there's that 5-minute window of time when kids are able to get in and get attendance done. The kids love the 9:30 break, what we call it advisory, where, you know, some are taking advantage of healthy snacks, some not, but it's a nice little break during the day. The nurse is seeing less people at that point who are either tired or needing a break or needing something to eat. And then that set discovery block after that, where they're working on interdisciplinary projects, is going really well too. Some kids don't like the color of the team, but, you know, next year it'll be something different. So, but everything else I think is, you know, as smooth as it can go, and that's really a benefit to even the teachers really putting a positive spin on it, and
And I think, Principal Graham, I'd want to second and affirm everything that you're saying. A couple of comments I want to make. I want to extend a thank you to the staff with the whole rocket issue, because I know that I helped to slow that process down. And I make no excuses for it, and I feel very comfortable now as we move forward. So thank you to the staff for that, and thank you to your administrative partners there for working with me with that. The other piece that I want to say too is I very often go down to get lunch from your cafeteria, very often. The food, by the way, just outstanding. If you've not eaten the cafeteria food here, oh my goodness, it's just amazing. What strikes me though is how well behaved those middle school children are when you have so many in that cafeteria. And they're always so polite, they're always very helpful, because I'm trying to find this dressing or that dressing or the ketchup and they're always there to help. I mean, they're just, oh my gosh, they're great. I would agree with you. If you had your vision of what a middle school should look like, this is it. Absolutely.
And if I could piggyback a little bit on the cafeteria, even when you get the scraps at the end, they're really good too.
I love the scraps. I had meatloaf the other day. It was delicious.
But what Beth has instituted too is she has brought in games. There's a
Yes,
quiet
that's right,
the AMS Cafe. So there's a corner where you can play games. Teachers have very willingly said, I'll go outside. If these kids want to go outside in that last 10 minutes, they're done and they're just driving themselves nuts and go outside and run around the field or something. So we have a mini recess thing for kids during lunch, and really that's spearheaded by Beth, and really the teachers and students have done nothing but embrace that. So.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Sounds good.
So we'll go to Mendez and Principal Irvin.
Hello again. Mendez welcomes back 632 of our friends at the beginning of the school year. First day of school was funny. We were walking outside for bus duty, and I'm talking with Miss McDonald, the assistant principal, and I'm saying, over the summer it's just a building, but as soon as the buses showed up, it becomes a school. And you could really feel that school sensed real fast, which was wonderful, wonderful to see. Everything's going very well. We have jumped right into it the first day of school. I was doing walkthroughs, just seeing what was going on, and 10 o'clock, 10:15, textbooks are open. We're working on math, we're writing stories, journals were open, so the kids got right back into the routine real fast, which was always nice to see. We have a number of things going on right now. We've completed our literacy assessments with the kids. One thing that I'm bringing in this year is our literacy teacher now is going to be supporting the children in the regular education setting rather than pulling them out into the smaller workspace. So 5 of the 7 grade 3 classrooms will have a minimum of 2 adults during their literacy block, and some classes will have 3 adults. So this is really going to allow us to start to single in on the needs of the children, especially at that early grade level, really focus on what they need to know rather than what they already know. So we're very excited about that. Miss Smith, our literacy teacher who started back at the end of January, took it upon herself to design some lessons for our 3rd grade friends to show them how to work in the library. The library is opening up next week, and we'll start our rotations of the kids going in. So she's done a couple of lessons with each of the 3rd grade classes about the library, how to use the library, how to look up a book, nonfiction versus fiction. So it's been a nice introduction for the kids to open as we get the library system going this year. Our PBIS leadership team is in full swing. We have a wonderful representation of specialists, classroom teachers, ESPs. They have met probably about 4 or 5 times at this point. We're now starting to discuss the core values that we really want to start to embed into our everyday practices at the school, and how we're going to develop that list of core values and really start to live it on an everyday basis. So that is going to be a very exciting group for us at Mendez. We're very excited to get PBIS started there. Similar to the literacy work, our ELL instruction this year, we're also going to have the ELL teacher and the aide go into the classrooms with the children and try to do as much support with them in the regular education setting rather than pulling them out into smaller workspaces, smaller areas. I've always been a strong believer that they need to have that role model type student around them so they can really see this is how it is to be a student, this is how it is to act and respond. So that's going to be, I think, a positive thing for us to really start to build off of at this point. And we had our first community meeting last Friday where the auditorium has gotten too small for us, so we now have to bring all the kids down to the gymnasium. And I like to do that every once in a while, and I always like to open up our community meetings by having the kids just look around and really seeing what the Mendez family looks like, how big the community really is. And they love seeing all of their friends at once, and we're all in the same room at once. And our objective of this first meeting is that I had the teachers introduce themselves to the entire crowd, so everyone got to see every faculty member. And my hope was that they'd learn the name of one additional adult in the building who they could go to for help or assistance if they ever needed it. And a lot of the kids did confirm that for me, that they picked up a new name, so they were happy that they participated. It was one of those hot days. You could literally grab the air if you wanted to, so the kids did well on that. And just the last thing I just want to share too, we hosted our 3rd grade parent orientation yesterday at the school. I had 55 parents come over for a brief orientation session where I reviewed the student handbook, some of the things that we're trying to do at the school, some of our goals and what we're trying to do. Took a lot of questions, a lot about our intramural program and after school program, a lot of questions about the buses, which are usual 3rd grade parent questions that we get at this point. But I thought the 55 parents were wonderful to see that type of turnout in the middle of the day. And it was even nicer that we had 18 parents stay and have lunch with the kids. And so far, that was probably the best behaved lunch we've had with the third grade with the parents there. So it was really nice to see the difference, and it meant a lot. And a lot of the mums and dads who stayed did thank me for it. They really appreciated the chance to come in during the day to see what was going on. So Mendez is in full swing, and onward we go.
Any
The-
questions of Principal Irvin?
Okay.
I
Thank
would-
you very
I
much.
would make a comment or two if I can.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. I always put on my running shoes when I come over to your building because it takes me the longest to go through by the time you've hit every corner in there. Your community meeting, I just came into the tail end of it, and you're right, the heat, oh my goodness, it was so hot, but the energy in that room with all those children and all the staff back was just wonderful, just fabulous. It was something really neat to experience, so thank you for the invitation to go there, I appreciated that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great,
Thank you. And with that, we'll ask Principal Carr to come back up and talk about Warren.
It's nice to come up here and echo the positivity, because our beginning has been a fantastic one, and we're so lucky to have joined the community of teachers who are excited to teach almost our youngest learners. So, and when they get to us, they're ready to go. I think that, similar to what Mr. Irvin said, our building didn't become complete until our kindergartners joined us that third day in. And once they joined us off the bus, you knew everybody was excited to learn. Watching those students come off for the first time, we know it's anxiety provoking for the parents, but when the kids run off the bus and see their teachers, the smiles from ear to ear, and it just gets everybody in the building excited to learn. And I think the special thing about our building is when you walk through the hallways, we seem to have already developed that buzz. And we talk about generating a buzz and generating excitement in a school building. And when there are young kids who are eager to learn and teachers who are excited to teach them, that's how the buzz gets generated. We've talked about our 4 core values in our PBIS meetings so far. We're encouraging the students to be kind, respectful, responsible, and safe. And our whole year is going to center around those 4 core values. And we had some excellent grade level meetings where we invited the students of each grade level to come without their classmates from the different grades. And we read them a story. We read them the story, Have You Filled the Bucket Today by Carol McLeod. And we're encouraging our young students to be bucket fillers. And essentially what that means is we are going to be kind to one another. We're going to say nice things for each other. We're going to smile to each other in the hallway. We're going to establish an atmosphere of positivity throughout the building and throughout everything we do. If you come into our building now, you'll see this little silver bucket in our hallway with the smiley face on it and a little blue ribbon as a nice reminder for every day when a kid walks through that lobby that their job is to fill that bucket and be a bucket filler and not be a bucket dipper and take away from people's good feelings. So it was read to the kindergartners, the first grade, and the second graders. And one of the things we talked about with our second grade students is that they're second grade role models now. And they are going to be role models for our kindergarten students and our first grade students. And we let them become role models right away by having an all-school community meeting the second week of school. And the second graders sat appropriately and showed the first graders and the kindergartners how they should be sitting as those students walked through. And then they got up in front of their classmates and their peers and their teachers, and each classroom performed a different skit about appropriate behavior and what it looks like in the different areas of our building based on our PBIS principles. And it was very impressive to see these young kids get up there and perform for their classmates. And our teachers took the time, and our teachers understand the importance of setting the example and setting the tone with our kids so early to make sure that our year is a successful one. Like anything else, we are also cautiously optimistic, like Mr. Adams, but it's easy to be cautiously optimistic at our level. K-2 is really where all the fun is and where the excitement happens. And not to mention, I didn't even talk about the wonderful learning that's already going on. Our teachers are getting right into the literacy instruction, and our literacy assessments are in full swing. Also, we're looking to push that literacy support into the classrooms, and we have a heavy goal, a large goal for us right now is to improve our literacy and make it even better than it already is. So once they're getting to Mr. Irvin at Mendez, they are ready to fly. So thank you for the opportunity.
Any questions of Principal
No,
Kyra?
I just have a comment for everybody. These PBIS things sound wonderful, so if you're scheduling more, please let us know, because I'd love to be a fly on the wall for some of those. Just as they're coming forward.
Our door is always open, so.
Thank you.
And I too would make a comment too, at our SAC committee meeting yesterday morning, the bucket filling came up and how much the parents appreciate that approach. And you're right about the PBIS wanting to be a fly on the wall. It is precious to watch it happen in that particular building. It is really, really fun. And I think you're off to a great start there, so hats off to the new team. They're doing wonderful. Thank you. And we would ask Principal White to come back. She's got this very special program this year.
Last but not least. All right, last but not least. Well, our school year started off after a very busy summer getting ready for our little infant toddler program, which we affectionately call We Watch. And I have to give my hats off and credit to Rebecca Tingley and Cheryl Fitzpatrick, who is her co-teacher in the infant toddler room, for the wonderful job they did pulling that room together. We were kind of biting our nails at one point, not sure if all of the cribs and all of the equipment was going to come in time, but it did. And by the time the staff returned on August 27th, the room was welcoming, it was inviting, and we actually had a welcome to school day for our staff so they could actually see the classroom, because they really signed up taking a leap of faith, not even having a classroom to look at. It was really 4 bare walls and a rug encounters, and that was it. And by the time they showed up, it was a wonderful little room. So that was our start. Our welcome to school days were very, very well attended. We had almost near perfect attendance, with the exception of some families who were taking late vacations. But of the parents that were there, they were wonderful, bringing their children and spending some time in the classroom with them. And it was a great way to start off the year. This being our second year in the building, I really think that I feel that it went even smoother than the first year we were there. Our staff were familiar with the building. They were familiar with our first year protocols from the year before. So the day actually went a lot smoother. Like Mike was saying, sometimes it's more anxiety riding for the parents who have to drop their children off for that first time. For many of them, it's their first experience away from themselves. And so they're entrusting their children to us. I think there was more tears on the parents' part than the children's part, but we encouraged them to give us a call about 20 minutes later. And so things went very, very well with our first days of school. Our programs are in full swing. Our lunch bunch program, our Leap into Literature program, our early drop-off, our extended time. So everything is going very well at this point. We have 122 preschoolers and 10 infant toddlers at this point.
Exciting. Any questions of Principal White? I would second the same line of thinking as with the PBIS at Warren School. For any school committee members that would like to go and see that infant and toddler program, oh my gosh, it's just, if you want a child fix, that's the room to go in. They're just so tiny. They're just so tiny and cutest little bundles. Oh my gosh,
They add a new spark and excitement to the building. They really do. You'll see the teachers stopping by and peeking in. Of course, I have dibs on particular children, which I claim, so no one breaks in on mine. But yes, it's fun to see them. And we actually we're hoping to actually get a few more students as we move forward. We have a few more slots available. We're getting more inquiries, so
Great.
it's going well.
That's wonderful.
Yep.
Awesome, wonderful.
Mrs. Scott, I do have a question. It might be, I'm wondering how we're doing with the heat in our buildings. We had some pretty hot days, and we talked about the humidity and how tough it was. Are we all okay? And
I'd be happy to take on that challenge because it actually did present us with a challenge. You're absolutely right, and it really started our very first day back with all of our staff. The heat in some of those buildings was beyond intense, and you know, of course, the second day we had it at the high school, and just the staff, and I don't know what the temperature was in that room, but it was just unbelievable. And anyway, to be honest with you, what we have done is we reconvened our fan committee, is what we did, and we have done some research, and we are in the process of creating a plan. We've met with our administrative team with regards to it, so we are going to be mapping something out. So that's a great question, because you're right, it was a really, really hot start back. And I think the time that it hit me the most really was that community meeting that Principal Irvin had at Minda's. It was so terribly warm in there. So, yes, so that's where we're at with that particular piece. But you're right, something needed to be done quickly. You're absolutely right.
So in terms of children and water and all, we're mindful of that, I'm sure.
Oh, I
I'm sure.
think so.
And this is more, I'm saying this to reassure parents out there that all of our principals are mindful of the heat.
Yeah, absolutely. Great, thank
Great,
you.
thanks.
Thank you. I would just like to interject for a moment that, we did move the introduction of new staff forward, so if you wanted to leave, I know some people have taken advantage of that, and, thank you all for coming, and welcome to Ashley.
As you leave, I do want to welcome you all.
Thank
Really,
you.
really nice to have you.
Have a good year. We appreciate all of you coming
And
out.
the principals too.
And
Yes,
the
you did.
principals too. Thank you for your
Yes.
input and
Thank
your
you.
updates. We appreciate it.
Thank you for coming in.
And the only other thing I would like to say just before we go to our superintendent report is, welcome, Mrs. Fletcher.
Thank you,
I mean,
yes.
we're introducing all of our new staff and all of our new administrators, and, we have a new administrator in
A
our
new-
superintendent
that's
position.
right.
And we all had an opportunity to kind of get to know you in July and August, and, we welcome you here.
Thank you.
So
I
welcome
appreciate
aboard.
that. I really appreciate that. And I know that our administrative team has left, but I mean, I would want to start first, similar to our first day back, in thanking the school committee for the opportunity to lead the district with you. I really appreciate that. It has been a tremendous start, full of a lot of different meetings. I was thinking about tonight, I can't possibly put down the number of meetings that I've had. You'd really have to look at my calendar to see where I've been and the various groupings that we've met with. But I would want to send out a couple of comments to a couple of people. Chief Romer and I attended a very interesting Chiefs and Superintendents meeting this morning in Stoneham. And Jerry Leone, our district attorney, put it on, did an outstanding job, and the ballroom was just packed with superintendents, fire chiefs, and police chiefs, and it was an excellent, excellent morning. I think Chief Romer and I have had a couple of discussions now, and I think that we just both feel strongly that we want to continue the positive relationship that has already been in place. I feel blessed to just be able to walk in and kind of reassume the role there. So my thanks to him, and thanks certainly to Mr. Leone for putting on such a wonderful morning. It was very, very informative with any number of different lawyers presenting on any number of different issues. It was fantastic. I've met with several of our members from our SAC group, and I would report out that yesterday we had a packed room. There were a lot of people in that room yesterday morning, and I believe a lot of them were their first time there. So it was packed. There really wasn't a chair to be had in the room. So very, very positive. It was a very positive environment, and they asked great questions. So I think that they're off to a very good start. Barbara and I attended, of course, the ASHPAC the other night, and I know that all of our administrators went to that as well, and just to be introduced and say a couple of things. So our thanks to all of the parents that worked so hard on all of these different organizations. The foundation, I've been to a meeting with the foundation, an excellent group of people to work with, very, very impressive, so driven, and all of the parents that I've met, including my own interactions with parents throughout the summer, so committed to Ashland Public Schools. It's just such a blessing as a superintendent to come into that. The coalition, of course, I've met with several of the coalition members. Some of the FinCom members have come forward and met, and it's just been a really, really good start. And I would agree that the summer planning, that was fun. I really enjoyed the summer planning session. It was very productive for us, and I just really enjoyed myself. So with that, I'm just going to touch base on a couple of the things that we, and I'm going to get up and move if that's okay, just because that's what I do.
Sure.
And we're just going to kind of quickly go through some of the topics that we've touched base on, and I know that you're going to go through some more of them in a little bit here. But these are more of the topics that were really specific to Barbara and I and Kathy. So certainly either Dr. Stickney or Mr. Rand can pop in and add additional comments at any point in time. When we look at where we are heading within our district as some key focal points, the educator evaluation is something we absolutely have to do. For our members of our public this evening, we want you to know, because we are a race to the top district. Now, Race to the Top is part of a larger federal program in Massachusetts, basically one part of some of the grant money by promising certain things. Now, the Race to the Top also has some funds attached to it, but those funds are very, very targeted, and it's specific to grant criteria. And that was one of the questions that the SAC group asked the other morning. Well, can we spend that money anyway? And the answer is no. Race to the Top, as any grant that we get into the district, whether it's SPED, the 240 that you were talking about tonight, you know, somebody can listen to that and say, wow, that's a lot of money. It is, but it's targeted money that goes to help offset our special education costs immediately. So the educator evaluation that's coming into place, because we are a Race to the Top district, we must implement that this year. There were some early adopters. We were considered to be an early adopter, but we did not implement it nearly to the extent that we will be implementing it this year. All other districts in the state of Massachusetts, if they are not Race to the Top, they must have this in place by next school year. So this will be a key piece for us. It is complex, it's multi-layered, and I'm sure that you're going to speak to it this evening as well as you talk about the superintendent piece, which basically mirrors all of the pieces. If we can just go to the next slide, thank you. I put this, I worded this very specifically, and it sounds like it's, it doesn't sound grammatically correct, but I'd like to explain it. The evaluation process is somewhat all-encompassing. And here's what I mean by somewhat. Right now it's somewhat because at this point in time, not all of the pieces have rolled out from the state yet. The intent, though, is that it will be all-encompassing as soon as all of those pieces roll out. Right now, we have just come down, actually today, Barbara was at the MASBO meeting, and they have new language that's just now come down for business managers. We have some new language now that will just come down for guidance counselors. We have new language for superintendents, so I would say probably the last 2 to 3 months. So this is coming at us piecemeal, but right now, the focus right now is teachers, administrators, and superintendents. But at the end of all of this, the intent is that it will be absolutely everyone, whether it's OT, PT, anything. Thank you. The negotiation, part of the process for us, and Ashlyn has already done this, we've had to add different sidebar language. We've had to negotiate that with our teachers, who I'd like to say our union has been absolutely fantastic to work with in adding the appropriate language. You could do 3 things. You could adopt, adapt, or revise, and what Ashlyn did was primarily adopt with some adaptations. So we are not anticipating that it will be kicked back to us from the state because of that. Those who've done major revisions, that may ultimately be kicked back. A 5-step cyclical process is in place, and if you take a look at it, that 5-step process is in place for every single grouping, whether it's teacher, principal, or any others, including superintendent. There are clearly defined rubrics, and I know if you are involved in education right now, you understand fully what a rubric is, but a rubric very nicely outlines clear expectations in order to achieve a certain rating. Some of our teachers use rubrics. I'm not sure if they're using them at your high school at all. Have you had the opportunity to work with rubrics that you can think of, or no?
Yeah, English classes.
English, absolutely, English classes, definitely. So rubrics and expectations have been clearly outlined by the Department of Education, which we now call the DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. The charts have no numbering system, so it's not a scale, like a Likert scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. It's nothing like that. The Ratings really are based on the elements and indicators as outlined by the state. The final comment down here is that the DES written expectations and templates conform to the newly established government regulations. These established government regulations were critical in order for the state of Massachusetts to be able to make application and receive, as it did, the funds from the Race to the Top. The Race to the Top also will, Race to the Top funds also will help us. You'll see in a minute, I'll talk about curriculum. They will also help us with curriculum, and they have also helped to offset the costs that we've incurred to help train our staff with the educator evaluation. Technology, we are going to be looking at technology this year. Not necessarily that it is primary focus for us. I want to really stress that. What is important to us is that we take a look at where we are at in terms of our technology throughout the district, at the various schools. Every school has got different needs right now, and some of them are really quite basic. When you talk about Mendez and you talk about the fact that we really need more electrical outlets to be able to plug in the number of computers that we've got there. So we've got things like that that we have to take a look at. And you know, we have started some preliminary discussion. We had an excellent discussion this afternoon in my office with another stakeholder from the high school. We've sat with Paul Carpenter. I know Mr. And I have spoken with him and had some lengthy discussions. So we are starting that process, and we will take our time with it and map out a good plan. And you know, we had stressed today as well, including an evergreening component to it. Because if we just continue to buy things without a good plan, then it tends to be random without a nice continuum. We need to know where we're at, what's coming in behind that. For example, you can say, well, we've refurbished the lab at the middle school. Well, that's only good for the next couple of years. What's the evergreening process behind that? So that's important as Mr. And I sit down and start to work the fiscal piece behind this. So this kind of planning will help us as we move into our budget season. Facilities, we're basically in the same category with our facilities. We've already had some beginning and early discussion on our facilities, again looking at developing a process for assessing our current facilities as they are. We've already talked about some basic preliminary things about our goals for the future. For example, lighting. There are some electrical companies that are in our state that offer some wonderful initiative money, but you have to have a really good plan. You have to have the ability to make the application for the grant, and then you can go after it. So at the end of everything, what you're going to get is better lumens as you walk through the hallways, better efficiencies in your lights, and of course it's just everything's brighter and less money for your electricity bill at the other end. But it's a case of finding these little things and saying, yes, you know, we see these needs and we're going to go after it. So that's for facilities. Strategic plan, and I'm going through this quickly tonight because I know that we have a long agenda, so I apologize. And certainly if you'd like to stop me at any point in time or after this, we can engage in any discussion you'd like to. There is a strategic plan already in place for Ashland Public Schools. What we've talked about in our offices is that what we need to do is look at the work and our focus, particularly with the educator evaluation, and see how that fits into what's already pre-established for our strategic plan. And then we want to encompass any other anticipated work so that it's all part of that one singular plan. And that's it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Mrs. Munchie? Well, thank you. That was great. I know you did a lot of work this summer, meeting with everyone.
It was
so-
very busy.
Yeah.
It was a great summer.
Excellent. Well, we had a great summer too. And so next on our agenda is we were going to just, we have a quick little presentation about what the school committee did this summer. I don't know if so I don't know if people realize that we do usually meet in the summer, at least once. This summer we met twice, and to do some planning for the year ahead. So we just have a quick little PowerPoint, and I just want to invite all of my colleagues to feel free to and some of us went with another committee member, some went individually, but we all had a chance to tour the building and see what was going on. And then Mr. Irvine, I think, also got onto the idea that we all enjoyed that. It was a good opportunity to meet with school committee and just kind of get a feel for the building. So we went to tour the Mendez School in July, and we felt like it was an opportunity for the principal to just kind of showcase and show us what the strengths of the buildings were, what the needs of the buildings were, and it was our kind of first-hand opportunity to start thinking about long-term or short-term and long-term with regard to facilities. So I don't know if anyone has anything they'd like to add. But, the next thing we did, which was very nice, Mr. Kyra, who you met earlier tonight, actually sent individual emails to each of us as members and invited us in to come and meet with him at the Warren School. So people were able to go in and really get a feel for Mr. Kyra in terms of his experience and his interests and really his enthusiasm. I don't think you can meet with him and talk to him and not pick up on his enthusiasm. So we were all excited, I think, to hear his plans for the Warren School. You know, he doesn't just talk about children, he talks about his parents, he talks about his staff, and he has equal enthusiasm for all of them. And so it was exciting to hear about that. So did anyone want to say anything that actually, no? Okay.
Doing great.
I'm just gonna keep asking. And so we did have the 2 summer planning meetings. We had a full day in August, and in attendance, of course, were the 5 of us school committee members and Superintendent Clunchy and Assistant Superintendent Duran. And so we had a very lengthy agenda, and these are all of the things that we talked about over the 2 meetings. Our second meeting was a follow-up in September. The first thing we started out with was we all read the book, QBQ, which was assigned to the administrative team, right? And so it's the question behind the question. And we have done this over the last few years, I would say, that we're either assigned a book that we read on our own and we discuss, or sometimes we read the one that the team, the administrators are reading, so we kind of have a flavor for what you guys are all talking about when you meet. Did anyone want to comment on the book?
Well, I thought it had a really interesting message that I definitely ran with. I mean, it's an easy book to read. You can read it in a day, and it's not saying much other than this one sort of major concept, but I found it useful. It kind of flipping question behind the question is kind of asking you to take that first question that you ask, like who dropped the ball, or what went wrong here, or what are they going to do to fix it, or why are they behaving this way, and turning it back into yourself and asking, you know, do I own any part of this? Is there anything I can do to improve the situation? It's really taking another look at it from a perspective of rather than sort of point fingers and complain, how can I make a change that involves me making my own change that's not dependent on anybody else. So I do think that was, even though we didn't get a chance to really discuss it in depth, it is a concept that I actually thought about and have used, especially in my work life, and I thought it was very helpful. So thank you.
Excellent. I think too, the other thing is, we talked about it around our administrative table. One of the other things that, if you look on it at a deeper lens, there's generally something behind what's in front of you. You know, for example, parents when they come in and they're really upset about something, sometimes that one thing was the straw that broke the camel's back. Are we looking behind to see what the other things are that may have led up to that, or a staff member, or a child, and so we had that type of discussion around the administrative table as well. In fact, you know, today somebody said to me right away, it's one of those, what's the issue behind the issue? Like that, we don't just say the question behind the question. It's a question behind the question, the QBQ, and what's the issue behind the issue?
Right. What's really behind
What's really behind it, yeah. And very often, if you can fix that, or you can support that, or help that, the other pieces in front start to kind of melt away.
Yeah, it's just it's a broader way of looking at a
It is.
situation, and I think it's a helpful tool.
I was going to suggest about the book, I think it's helpful when people all read the same. I mean, there's some communities I've heard about where they try to get everybody in the community to read the same book so they can all kind of have a shared experience. And I was just, as we were talking about this, I was kind of thinking about if there's a way that all the administrators have read it and all the school committee, but now what do? We have, what, 15 or 20 copies around, right? If we all pass our copies back in. It almost feels like we should bundle them and then make them available, and you know, the whole Java-like thing, you know,
Yes.
maybe we give them to all the English teachers, and then they can pass them on to all the, whatever the groups might be. I mean, not in a forced way, but if they're
No.
interested.
Your point is so well taken, and actually, one of the principals said, I feel like this would be very useful for my secretary. And they're right, again, if you take a look at that and say, when they're the front line, when the parent comes in or the child comes in, or, so that's a great idea, I didn't even
Reassemble them
think
and
about that,
bundle them and
reassemble them and,
pass them
yeah.
around.
That's a great idea.
It is a great idea. Thank you, Marcia.
Who wants mine?
I was gonna say, we can all turn them in. Yeah, so that's a great idea. And so, when we actually got together for our first meeting in August, we have often done this in the past. We do a team building activity. And so this year, we were able to do, with just the 5 of us, a timeline of sorts where we all could share information. I mean, I think people recognize the idea that we work together, we have to consider a lot of information when we sit here. We read up a lot of stuff, and we have to have some healthy discussions, but it's really nice to kind of understand how each of us tick, sort of as individuals. So I think, I always enjoy the team building activity. So we had an opportunity to do a little bit of a timeline and sharing in the morning. And then after lunch, after Mrs. Duran and Mrs. Clenchy joined us, we were able to kind of get out there in the fresh air and sunshine, because it was a lovely day. And we had our beach ball questions that we tossed the ball around and answered questions, and that was nice too,
That was
to share
fun.
that with both of you. So, that's always a great thing, I think. I think it makes us a little more human, or remember that that's where we're all coming from, the same place. We were able to establish a policy ad hoc group. Mrs. Rennie and Mrs. Tosti were both elected to that. We appointed our town liaison committee members, which will be Mr. Jewett and myself. We're hoping that the town liaison gets reestablished this year. Last year, they only had 1 meeting, but we're hoping that that's something that gets back rolling. We did appoint our school committee representative to our school wellness advisory committee, which will be Mrs. Bates. And then we did some policy updates. We heard about the new medical emergency response plans. We understood from our administration that we were able to submit the proper documents to the state. And then we'll await more direction in terms of policy development. And we also were presented with information about the executive session changes relating to the open meeting law. We were able to set our school committee goals for the upcoming school year, which we have discussion on tonight on our agenda. And then for ourselves, we attended, well, we decided at one of our meetings that we thought we needed to know more about the new education evaluation, which Mrs. Clenchy talked about how big of an impact that's really gonna be for all of us this year. And so we were able to invite the Mass Association of School Committees to come out, and Mr. Gilbert came out, and we decided it might be a nice idea to invite some neighboring school committee members, since we're all kind of in the same boat, although Ashland, we realized we're the only one in this area that was a race to the top district, so we were a little bit ahead of some of our colleagues, but we were able to include other people. And we learned about the superintendent evaluation, at least as a process. And he talked about the impact that the education evaluation will have on the collective bargaining, which, right now, like you said, the teachers union has been good about willing to include the language into the contract and all. I think one of the things that was most impressive when we talk about this process was the time and the energy and the resources that are really gonna be needed. I mean, it all really kept boiling down to, and we all kept coming back to, well, it costs money. Well, how will we pay for that? All of the questions, it didn't matter what town you were representing, people really were recognizing this is something that's gonna tap into resources. And then the other piece of it is understanding the positive outcomes. Really looking at this as an opportunity for growth for our teachers and an improvement in education for our children. And really the whole thing is a win-win. So we were all very happy to hear and support that going forward. And then the other thing that we had on both of those days is that we attended to Superintendent Clenchy's initial report. She had done a lot of work getting out and meeting with people, meeting with staff and administrators and teachers alike, and all the different parent groups, and you really had come to some findings, and you were willing to share all of your concerns, and we're looking forward to a great year ahead. I don't know if anyone has anything else they would like to add about our summer.
Oh, but we have a new student with us this year. I just want to make sure we welcome him as
I
well.
know.
We did at the end of last year, but it's great to have you here.
It is. Thank you. Okay, so moving forward, we have our goals that we received via email. And I thought I would ask Mr. Jewett to just kind of, since he was the one that compiled, this was part of our discussion at our summer planning meeting, and we had ideas. I know I sent over the notes that I had taken to Mark, and Lori as well had agreed to, and they went back and forth with compiling this list. And I thought maybe, Mark, you could present that for us.
Sure, you wanna split it?
No problem. You start. You wanna start?
All right, so basically, I think we had a lot of discussion on what the goals should be this year, but the sort of the overarching point was to make sure that they align with the district's focus that we saw in the, that we discussed over the summer and ultimately saw in the, opening day. So, the first goal is smooth implementation, is supporting the smooth implementation of the teacher evaluation system through various methods. One is communication of the tenets of the system to the community to assure that we are all well versed with it and understand the spirit of its intent. And I think, to further your point that you made, that you had Mass come and talk to us and the surrounding, school committee members that could attend, we want to now take that knowledge and be able to present that to the Ashland community, so the folks in the community understand that, the spirit of the intent of the evaluation and how much work's being done to make sure it goes smoothly here and how it's a benefit for the students in the end. So, another point of that is facilitation of informational meetings and notifications and evaluation of budget needs to support the ongoing success of the program. As you had mentioned, nothing's free when the state is helping. Next goal is to support curriculum, so support the efforts of the staff to focus on becoming familiar with and create their curriculum mapping utilizing the new Rubicon Atlas software, and I think everyone will be doing a lot of this as we move forward this year. This goal will be focused on ensuring that the new frameworks and Common Core will be incorporated into the educators' day-to-day and overarching curriculum work, and to ensure that we continue to move toward data-driven decision-making. Superintendent Clenchey talked about technology and the focus we'll have this year, so the school committee will support the gathering of evidence regarding precise status of technology implementation on the district to better understand where we stand and begin to map out a sustainable plan on where we are going and where we want to be. We will also aid our constituents, those of you at home, and understand how our technology is integrated into the classroom work for the benefit of the students. Ms. Thompson.
Yes, and next is policy, and even though we have a big fat policy manual that lots of members on this school committee have done a lot of work on that policy over the many years that they've been on the committee, and many of the policies are in great shape. We're gonna take a look at the policies as a whole, and Marcia, Mrs. Rennie and I already met today to get that started and make a plan for how we're gonna go about that. We're gonna go through the manual and see, which policies are still serving us well. We're gonna take a look at what MASC has and how it might compare to what we have, and whether they have something that we don't have, whether we need it. There are a couple of areas where we might feel that a policy is needed that we don't currently have. And in those cases, it may be necessary to have some sort of policy subcommittee to really explore and evaluate what a policy should look like in a new area. And so it may be further down the road, we'll have these little subgroups to help us form some new policies, but we've started the task. We divided up the list of policies outlined by MASC. We're gonna take a good look at them, see how they compare to what we have, and then step 2 will be to see what kind of delegating we need to do. We're gonna need some help from the administrators. And I know in the past, they had a certain period of time to come back, and I don't know if that's happening now, where they're reviewing policies that might be.
I have not seen them issued yet.
Okay. So we thought that that might be helpful. I know last year in the beginning, it was delegated maybe by Ann before she left, and so some folks took a look at policies that referred to their school or their area, and they reported back to us about any changes that might be necessary, and then we would take it from there. So we thought that we might need to delegate, maybe a piece to that, and then a piece perhaps to the subcommittees when the time is right for forming a new policy, and then maybe some of our colleagues on the school committee, if a lot of rewriting needs to be done, we will ask for some help there. So that's where we're at as of today. And communication too, which is always a goal of the school committee, and how we plan to continue to improve communication between everybody, our committee, our committee with the community, all of us with administration and teachers and parents, and how we can get that message out there. And some of the different things we talked about is upgrading our website so that information is current, and getting that understanding, and also helping parents to understand what the process is if they need to speak to somebody in administration, how that might work, and getting that up on the website. We started talking about using social media as a way for just this committee to report out what we're doing, even if it's just listing agenda items, so people in the community can know what we're talking about and perhaps come and join us or come and make some comments. And a lot of that is pretty easy to do, and many of the other groups in town I've noticed are on Twitter and they're on Facebook, and that's where I think a lot of our parents in this district are getting their information. I know I have myself, so I think we're ready to explore that option. And then finally, just again, which is always a goal, continuing to foster a relationship with others in town government, making sure that liaison committee gets back on track, and always looking for ways to communicate with all the various stakeholders in the community. So that's it.
Okay. Did anyone want to add anything?
I think that's plenty. I just have a comment.
Okay.
If I can just add too, I think that the policy work, for example, that you've taken on, and I think we want to send this message out to our families and our Ashland family. This is not work that's going to be done quickly. When we take a look at the policies, that's a mammoth undertaking. Kind of like our educator eval, we're going to do the best that we can this year, knowing full well we'll probably have to tweak it and make some changes to make it run, or allow it to run smoother the next time. Some of this work here, same with technology, we're gonna do our best to really get a handle on it this year, with the intent that the next year we can start to fly with it. So I think it's really important to point out that all of these things that we're talking about here are not necessarily things we are gonna accomplish inside of the next 8 months or 5 months or whatever, that we are looking with an eye beyond even this year.
The other thing I would want to say is under the policy one, I think changing the terminology from ad hoc group to policy review team might be appropriate, because I think we want to look at, I know Marcia and Lori have committed to doing that, but it is really the review piece, and then still looking at possibly establishing subcommittee policy if we need one.
Down the road.
So
That's a nice one to put.
I would like to just change it to, we will form a policy review team, and then under I there, just having it say the team will educate the school committee on school policy improvement needs. And then if that is agreeable to everyone, I would like a motion to accept these goals as amended going forward for our school year 2012-2013. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. So we have that. I'll check our plate. And do we have a policy update with regard to gender identity?
We do. In your packet, we gave you again the policy news from MASC.
Mm-hmm.
And on that notice that came out, there was a new statute that went into effect July 1st of 2012 that made changes to many of the Mass General laws relating to discrimination. And what it means is that any of our policies where we have a disclaimer that we will not discriminate against sex and religion and all of that. We now need to add that we will not discriminate against gender identity. So with this new policy review team in place, as they review policies, you can keep that in mind, and we can add it in any appropriate sections of our manual.
And Mr. Jew, did you have any updates? You mentioned that possibly an update on the naming of school department facilities?
I do, Chairman Bach.
Excellent.
I handed out in front of you, which should have 3 holes in it, a little overview of the 2 policies that I volunteered to take a look at. That's OP 3.3, advertising on school property, and SC 5.6, naming of school department facilities. So I'm just gonna sort of go over these, and my intent would be to hopefully get you to take on these comments on the advertising on school property as a first read, and then on the naming of school department facilities, I believe significant more work is needed, so. If we look at the document in front of you, it says OP 3.3, that position statement is taken right from our policy, and I just took some snippets out of the policy just to put you in the frame of mind of what we have. I believe this policy, we did quite a bit of work on it before, is in pretty good shape, and it just needs some tweaks, and I'll go over that. But I think the position statement on what we're trying to do is that the Ashland School Committee has established a formal policy on advertising on school property, hereby stating all the applicable restrictions and usage procedures, blah, blah, blah. All that's fine from my perspective. The purpose of the policy and its related practices and guidelines is to define the conditions upon which commercial messages and advertisements may be placed in school facilities and upon school property. All of that's fine. Delegation of authority, limitation, restrictions. The Ashland School Committee hereby delegates the superintendent of schools the authority and responsibility of negotiating contracts on behalf of the school committee for posting of commercial messages, but also in the procedure, that's once the school committee approves it. So any advertising has to come to the school committee for approval. That was what we agreed to before. On the second page, you see where advertising can happen. So currently designated facilities for the placement of commercial messages and advertisements are as follows. The gymnasia at the high school and middle school, along fencing at said schools, front of ticket booths, front of concession stands, front of press boxes, and ultimately at other locations as deemed appropriate by the school committee. When and if someone brings something to us for their approval, we can decide at that point. The balance of the policy really describes what can and cannot be advertised. So I didn't bother to put the other 5 pages in there.
Excuse
Like-
me, Mark, none of this stuff that you've so far said is any change.
Is
That's
anything
just-
new?
So when you get
Right.
now
Okay.
suggestions is where I'm gonna make
Okay.
some suggestions. So I believe we need to modify some policy language for clarity, and I'll go over those points. And we also need to add language to define types of advertising levels. And those have been the questions that have been floating around the last few months here, so. The first change I would recommend is change, that's from paragraph 8, it currently says, requests for naming rights, and this is an issue right here, because it leaks over into the other policy. So requests for naming rights to a facility or structure located on the Ashland Public School property will be subject to applicable requirements of this policy as determined by the Ashland School Committee. Well, that's not in the policy in reality. All right, it's in the other policy. So what I've said is, change this paragraph 8 to requests for naming rights to a facility or structure located on the Ashland Public School property will be subject to applicable requirements of policy SC 5.6, naming of school department facilities, as determined by the Ashland School Committee. What I'm trying to establish here is advertising for pay, period. For a limited time, for a fee to be determined when someone comes to the committee. Naming is naming of a facility for, in honor, for, we build a new school, we have to have a name on it, for those types of things, and that's in the other policy. Never the twain shall meet. All right, so that, I believe, takes care of that, as I said, the confusion. Then I suggest that we add a couple of or actually 3 paragraphs here to define the levels of advertising that we're going to undertake in this policy. So there would be a new paragraph 11, that's level of, or a new title 11, paragraph 11, levels of advertising definitions. Paragraph 11.1 would be, as suggested, local advertising is advertising of community businesses that comply with the guidelines within this policy. These advertisements will be in the form of banners or other display media that is temporarily attached to a school location type identified in this policy. All right, 11.2. Corporate advertising is advertising of businesses that comply with the guidelines of this policy. These advertisements will be in the form of more permanent signage that is semi-permanently attached to a school location type identified in this policy. So what we're doing for instance, the banner program we're running now, those are temporarily put up for a fee donation for a period of time, and they come down. If in fact we had someone come to us and say, we want to be Jimmy Smith's bank, and we want to sign on one of the scoreboards, that would be semi-permanently attached for a fee donation for a specific period of time. That's the difference. And that sort of takes care of the concern that we have that that's a naming of the field. No, that's not a naming of the field. If we decide to call this field Harry Smith Complex, that's a naming of the field, and that would be covered in the other policy on how we would submit to do that, how we would have the criteria to determine if that's appropriate, what committee would do that. So I'm hoping I'm making clear, I'm trying to separate donation and fee for a period of time versus some memorial, some naming, some other concept. And then to drive that home, paragraph 11.2.1, the advertising of a company name on a scoreboard or other field structure for a fixed time period at a fee typo, shall not or is not considered a naming right situation and is not subject to the requirements of SC 5.6, the naming policy. So I believe I've separated the two conditions at this point. Any questions on this policy?
So the fixed time, is that in the policy now, or
No,
that's something we have to work
it's per individual. So, for instance, we brought the banner program forward, and basically, it was approved by the school committee to run the banner program. There was a donation guideline set up, and that donation guideline was for a set of time periods, which, in this particular program, end next September 1st.
So you would just set the timeline for each
So if
specific.
Is that
Jewett
somehow
Associates
something-
comes and they want some type of commercial advertising on the property, I would say, look, I'd like this media, and I'd like it put here for this time frame, and this committee would have to
Decide.
accept that, and then the superintendent's office would manage the negotiation.
So each time we would decide on the time,
Correct.
end time, or,
Correct.
okay.
I see what you're trying to do with 11.1 and 11.2, and I think, or in 11.2.1 is just, I just think, I think you might wanna go back to a more uniform thing, only because as I'm reading it, I'm like, local advertising, community business, corporate advertising, I think people might get into this question, am I a corporate or am I local? And really, you're saying the same thing for both, which is that all advertising is paid for a fixed time period, right? I mean,
Correct.
and some things are, we talk about temporary and semi-permanent and more permanent, but it's really, everything is as negotiated. I mean, I think you could say it all in one sentence, which would be that very simple, all advertising is for a fixed time period is determined by the contract.
I would really like to do that, but we keep having the question come up about what's it say on the scoreboard, or what's it gonna say on this
Well,
plaque
that's
outside?
why I would definitely leave the scoreboard thing, cause I think that is kind of, once a name's on a scoreboard, it does sort of feel like a field name, so I think it's nice to
So
specifically
what you're
say.
recommending is, would strike 11.2, take out the word local in 11.1, and advertising is advertising for a fixed period, fixed fee.
And that time period is gonna be determined by, the negotiations that happen
I
every
don't, that'd be
case, right?
fine, so then 11.2.1
so-
becomes 11.2. That works. Any other comments?
I just have a quick comment. I think you put a lot of time and work and thought into this, Mr. Jewett. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Very kind of you.
It's true.
So we
I'm
would-
happy to put this to bed, quite frankly. What's going on? All right, so, well,
Can I ask
you,
a question, and this is,
Advertising.
I'm sorry, the question about the gymnasium, so we have interior advertising? I
we
know that's-
don't, but we agreed to
We agreed that we would
allow
allow
that.
it in gymnasiums,
Right.
no
I
other
think-
part of the interior of the school.
Correct. The thought was, at some point,
Yeah.
there might be some advertising hanging up in the big gym, actually, at the high school.
Mhm. I forgot that. Okay.
In that too, we would determine how long it would stay.
Exactly,
And how much.
exactly.
And it's all, I don't know, Kathy, if you had a chance to look at this policy, but the original one, which isn't here, there's a lot of language in there about who's an acceptable advertiser. It's
Right.
very specific.
And that all is still in.
That's all
That's
still
all
there.
still
Right.
there,
Okay.
yeah. So,
It's
so
it's
really, it's
several
just trying to
pages.
clarify some of these issues where we've had that overlap,
Sure.
so.
All right, so actually, why don't you let me talk about 5.6, then we'll go back to see if we can move to accept this as a first read. So 5.6, SC 5.6 is naming of the school department facilities. What I have here, that's the whole policy.
As it exists right
As
now.
it exists, it's a
Yes.
bit thin, I would say, to be kind. All right, so I've looked at several policies that go from being thinner than ours to being very, very detailed. So I'm working on trying to get something that's not in the middle, closer to a little thinner, but something that'll work for us. And I've seen virtually every question that we've had about time frame, memorial, this, that, it's in all of these different, but I need to do some more work to put them all in one place. So basically, the suggestions are there are several opportunities to improve the policy, including better define the application procedure and guidelines for the community, better define the decision criteria for whatever's gonna be the subcommittee or committee that looks at that, and better define the types of naming conventions. There's a facility application, which would mean cafeteria or gym or whatever. There's a memorial approach on the grounds, and then if anything else comes up, how that would be weaved back into the criteria. So, as I said, I've looked at several policies. I think I can have a rolled up one by the 21st, so we could have a first read of that at our next meeting.
People have anything they wanna add?
Within these defining and all that, and I agree with you, I think this is, it's, I like what you're looking at, because I think those are all the things we've talked about. Is any of that, better define who has input? Is that under, the decision criteria? It's not really a decision criteria, it's more like input. Like, for instance, some communities I know have a public comment period, or those kind of, have you seen some of that? Are you thinking of that?
There's stuff in some of these procedures where don't bother us, we aren't naming anything. And there's very specific guidelines, so I think in the define the application procedure and guidelines, that
That's
type
where
of
that would come in.
commentary would
Okay.
be on.
And is your thought right now, Mark, to keep this idea about, right now, we have this subcommittee that gets formed to consider a nomination?
Oh, I think so. I think when you get to naming and honor and some of the criteria you're gonna have to do to cover that, so you can be fair and equitable, there's gonna be some homework to do that, so I would stay with the subcommittee, goes off and looks at that, and then comes back with a recommendation to the board to do the
Mhm.
final vote. The advertising stuff is easy, but this
In
this
the-
gets a little more sketchy depending on what's going on.
Right. And the memorial, is your idea to define, or to, like, even give some examples? Because I know different people have, different things have been done in different places, and I think sometimes, at least what I've thought lately, while people have been thinking about making these nominations, is I think that maybe they're not thinking of all the other options. Do you know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
And somebody might say like, oh, wow, we really wanna, name a field, or we wanna really name, something big, without really thinking like, well, a bench with some,
Mhm.
a tree might be nice with a nice plaque. And so, would it be broken down to make, kind of, have people think about?
I think there'll
or-
be some examples of typical memorial.
Okay. I think that would be helpful, because I think people need, sometimes they need that prompt.
And I've said this, I'm gonna say it one more. I hope that we can distinguish between, I mean, we had a student come in and make a request in the time that most of us have been on this board, to plant a tree for a deceased student. And it was a simple process for that child. He came in, he had saved money to buy the plaque, to buy the tree, you know, and he'd done this, and we, as a committee, were able to honor his effort and honor his friend who had passed away. And it was a simple thing, and he planted a tree, and there was a simple ceremony, and it was very nice. I hope we continue to have that flexibility for something so simple, and to honor someone with a simple memorial. Because I agree, the naming thing, I just wouldn't wanna like get somebody caught up in bureaucratic red tape where, okay, we're gonna form a committee for this and all of that. So I'm hoping too that we will really distinguish.
I can add a fast track policy
I mean,
for
well,
the committee.
there's a
Yeah, some sort of
distinguishing thing
distinction.
between wanting to do a simple thing to memorialize someone who was part of our community versus a permanent name to a field, which is a huge honor, and we wanna make sure that that's done properly.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Any other comments?
All right, if there's no other comments, then I would like to ask the chair to ask for a motion to accept the first read of 3.3, and we can close it out the next time.
I guess I wanna ask people how they feel about that, because we didn't really have a chance to read it, other than tonight, Mark presenting it, so I'm just gonna ask how people feel about that.
I'm okay with it, only because I actually think we could probably do this on a single read. I don't think it's a
Right,
major,
that's
but
right.
given
I
that we
think it's
call it a
really a
first read,
revision.
I
We
would
can
go
call
with the
it a
first
first
read
read and
tonight.
then look at it together
I think
next
that's a
week.
good idea.
And I feel like we visited last year, the whole advertising.
Policies require 2 readings in a public meeting, but
A
if,
new one, right?
if
A
it's
new one
if it's a
does.
revision of a policy, our
Which
practice
this
is, if
is,
it's a
right?
minor revision, we can do it in 1 read, but if it's a major
I'm
thing, we
happy
do
to
it 2.
ask for the,
Well, I
I think the first read, I'd go with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's fair, given that then we can kind of digest it.
And then we
I
would-
have to admit
we
that
would
I
have to-
don't I just don't remember the amount of legalese that's in this advertising policy the first time we did it. You know, it's a nap inducer reading this policy. Really is. We must have got some help from Andy on this, because I know I didn't write all of it.
Okay, so do I have a motion to accept this, OP 3.3 advertising on school property as a first read?
So
Okay, and a second? Okay, and all in favor? Aye. Aye. So that passes 5-0.
Thank you.
And the motion was made by Marcia and seconded by Lori.
Now,
Okay.
I guess if I may, there's a couple things going on, and I suppose this is a good place to continue, because we're talking about the fields. Just briefly on an update, if that's okay.
Is this something you wanna talk about under school committee updates?
Well, I could, I'm just wondering,
it
I know that we
policy?
have a couple of requests that are outstanding,
Yes.
that we should probably decide how we're gonna handle them.
I thought we could discuss that under, future agenda items.
All right, sure.
Or action
All
items,
right.
because yes,
As we
you're
go.
correct, I did get a letter this week, and I did speak to the gentleman who sent it, and, wanted to really clarify with him, so I thought we could put that under action, is that okay?
All right.
All right, so moving on, we are going to go to Dr. Stickney.
Thank you. Most of the items that I plan to discuss with you this evening, you've already heard about, so I will be brief and just go over and give you the highlights in maybe a little bit more detail in some of the topics. We started our work earlier this summer, actually in August, in a few different areas that have been discussed. The administration team came in August, and we spent 2 of 3 days during our institute going over the educator evaluation system and some of our new software, our TeachPoint software, and going over some of the training that would be required as we needed to roll this out with staff. We followed that up subsequently with 2 more days of training where the administrative team brought in staff members. So they actually developed like building leadership training teams. And they went through with Rebus and Associates module training. The modules were produced and published by the state and the DESE. So they followed very specifically the guidelines set forth for the educator evaluation system. So they spent a great deal of time, talk about nap inducer, going through some of this documentation from the state in preparing to roll this out to their staff in the school community. So we started the second day of school. First day we had, thank you, you were there for our opening kickoff. And then the second day we jumped right in with a full day, a full slate for every staff member in terms of the training, the expectation, the online data management system surrounding the educator evaluation system. As part of one of our grants, our teacher quality grant, we actually have to publish a schedule as we set forth how we will accomplish all of our training for the year. So that will be something that we need to put up on our websites and get out there. And the administrative team really sat down this week in one of our meetings and figured out how we would address that in completing our module training. So as we move forward in our first benchmark date to have everything done in our training would be November the 8th, where we're looking at utilizing our next full day of professional development and some of our early release days in our curriculum time to go back and revisit the modules, have conversations with teachers, and do training on the modules that the state continues to roll out. So we're moving forward with our self-assessments and the goal setting that we'll need to do. Basically, we're looking at really helping everyone to calibrate on effective instructional practice and what that means to support the whole supervision and evaluation process. We're also working on aligning our curriculum in a continuous cycle. Last year you had heard a great deal about our vertical planning and our PLCs, and this year we've restructured that a little bit, and with the assistance of Rubicon Atlas, which is an online mapping platform, we're looking to move our mapping and everything in the old traditional binders into a living, practical portal that we can all share and collaborate. One of the beauties of the system is that it will allow grade levels and other departments to go in, and everything's based on the standards, and go in and see what other departments have created and help us to align so there are no gaps moving forward. We started our training with that work in July. We brought the system in July 15th. A week later, had a whole group of staff members that came in on their own time over the summer to come in and sit through a webinar and really become involved. They came back in August and brought some more people. So we had about a group of 22 or 25 teachers that came back in August to sit and work for 2 hours to really play with the system, kick the tires, put in some maps, and see how it would go. And fortunately, because we had DESE training for our math department at the high school this week, we had the opportunity to have some substitutes in the high school in the morning. And in trying to figure out how to best utilize our time, decided it would be a great opportunity to work with our English Language Arts department. So we were very excited to have the substitutes go in for English in the morning, and we had our 8 English teachers come into the distance learning lab, and in collaboration with teachers from Littleton High School who have already started with the process. They have had that for about 6 months, and they brought what they've done and shared that with our teachers. We had 2 teachers and the department head from Holliston High School. They've had the system for about 4 years and showed us what they've done. And then we also had the director of secondary education from Hopkinton, and they have done extensive work to the point where they've been able to open up a parent portal. So that's taken 9 years in the making. So he was very supportive of our teachers and sharing their resources and gave us some great suggestions. So I had an email today that their courses are up and they're ready to start loading. So we're very excited to have this moving forward and now have this growing in the high school. So we'll continue to plan to utilize as much curriculum time in capturing everything we can and capitalizing on our momentum. You heard a great deal about PBIS. That will be one of our other initiatives in moving forward with RTI, the academic side, as well as the social emotional PBIS side. We've had lots of discussion on focusing on RTI with our approach to literacy, and you've heard this evening we added a new Title I math tutor at the Mendez for 19 hours a week. So we're really looking to do everything we can, and hopefully as we're continuing to focus on providing intervention and remediation, it will also enable our teachers and our classroom teachers to extend their thinking to really help us continue to focus on enrichment at the same time and focus on all of our unique learners. Literacy and math. The other exciting piece I ran into this week as I was reading more about Rubicon Atlas, many districts have actually put that as one of their strategies for RTI. So this is a side point, but the fact that they actually said by having an aligned curriculum that was open to all teachers where they really had a solid foundation of what every student should have and how to provide it, it provided a great basis for classroom instruction that really helped jumpstart their RTI. So we're looking forward to tying both of those initiatives together. You've also heard about, especially at the middle school, our STEM Learning Lab is up and running at the middle school. It's a work in process because this is new to us, but they really have embraced it. There is a Google site where they're posting pictures and videos of the engineering and inquiry process that all students are participating with. And it's actually a great segue into tying into their project-based learning that's happening during the discovery block. So not only do we have the science and math teachers collaborating, the ELA and history teachers and the arts are also coming into play to really work collaboratively. We had, in one of our discussions about the rockets, and we had said, you know what, we really need to rethink our timeline. One of the ELA teachers came down in a panic and she said, but wait, I've started my rocket poetry unit. So they're really, really pulling it all together and working well together. And then finally, I was going to address the EdWin that you had heard about earlier this evening. We're really looking at moving forward with the middle school and the high school and thinking along the lines of our technology and our instructional technology, online learning. It was exciting to see that we're at the point with Race to the Top where the state is trying diligently to tie together all of these projects that we've had randomly, that seemed random at the time when we signed up, to see how they would all fit together in building a more cohesive system. And we're getting to that point, year 3, where now they're coming together and they're building a nice picture. The dots are connecting. EdWin is one of those examples. EdWin is actually a little acronym, and they have a very cute little character. Ed short for educational, and like a win-win situation. So they're calling it EdWin, and they have a little student there. EdWin is actually an online platform for teaching and learning that will be available to all the educators in the state. This is their dashboard, so to speak, where they will be putting up the new frameworks. There will be a portal to the data warehouse that keeps track of all of our scores. There will be the accountability charts and status, all of the online resources that we have available to us. One of the projects that we've been participating in is model pilot units for ELA and math. Those will be available to all teachers. Also, the curriculum mapping. We've heard rumor that one of the companies that we're now working with will actually be a part of this. So we would be able to go and see curriculum mapping from our district and many other districts available as samples. So the grant project that became available to us because we had opted to participate is the Edwin pilot. And the state, based on some federal money that came out last minute, asked the districts that had volunteered who would be willing to pilot the system, kick the tires, and give them some feedback. And for being willing to do that, they also wanted to test it out on a variety of different technologies. So we received an email that said, you are eligible to apply for this grant. 14 districts applied, 4 were chosen to pilot, and we were one. And our proposal includes that we will purchase iPads. We've been able to, with the 20,000, all had to go to iPads. We will purchase 52 iPads that will be signed out and loaned out to teachers to utilize the system. They will have to provide feedback for us by the end of June. The portal's not yet open, so we haven't actually seen it. We're just running on what they're telling us. So the iPads will be here at the end of September, ready to go when they open it up. We need to give feedback, and then when our pilot is finished, our plan is to collect the iPads, put them on a cart, and we'll have them to utilize in the middle school and the high school to move forward our technology.
So the 52 iPads will go back to students. They won't stay with
Absolutely.
teachers to be used for
Correct.
this portal.
No. Our focus and the reason we're being given the iPads is strictly to be able to have the opportunity to give them feedback. And in order to, and utilize the system. And in compensation for that, we'll be able to keep the iPads. So our focus is to actually take those in the buildings. Our proposal was to pilot this at middle school and high school. So that's where the buildings, where these will be deployed. And yes, back to student use.
And have you found your teachers willing to do it?
We were actually, this is brand new for us.
Uh-huh.
So we've only known about a week, and we have, because we don't have a lot of detail in terms of what feedback means.
Sure.
We're waiting to get a little bit more information from the state, but it will be opened up to a volunteer option, and then if we have to go to a lottery system, we'll do that also. But they're also looking for feedback for people who are willing to try it out on laptops as well. So the opportunity to get in and use the system will be open to anyone in Ashland, any of the teachers.
And once someone has the iPad, are they able to then only use it for that purpose, or will they
No.
essentially have the iPad use it?
They can actually, yes, they can actually utilize that for school purposes, for any technology-related instructional activity. So this'll be a way that we can enhance our technology and hopefully move forward some of our other initiatives in terms of incorporating more interactive activities.
Great.
Anything else?
No, I just want to
Thank you.
commend you on the amount of work that you've put in with all of this. And it was a great day the other day, the morning with all of our new friends from other districts coming in and using the exemplars. That was fabulous.
If I may, I just wanted to piggyback. As some of the other people from districts were leaving, and they had utilized the system, they actually said, this was just so great to sit down and talk to each other. And we've already made plans. We had a district that contacted us. They have a PD day in October and said, we're looking for something. Do you have a PD day? Because we're looking for something for our art and physical education, health and wellness people. Do you have anything going? And I said, actually, their maps are fantastic. And they've been on the fence and haven't really been able to utilize Atlas a lot. And I said, I know our folks would love to have the opportunity to sit down with you so you can all work together. So we're planning another share fair, so to speak, and have more districts come in.
Do you have a question?
My question was, you mentioned the staff that came in over the summer,
Yes,
and you said that like 20 or so.
yes.
My question is about, like, were they self-selected, and what do we do for staff like that? How are we as a district, I mean, I don't know, maybe they came in and were paid for their time or whatever, but I just am wondering, what do we do to foster that level of commitment?
That's an excellent question, and I will tell you, not to shortchange any of our staff, we had a tremendous number of staff members that worked throughout the summer. We had close to 100 staff members between PBIS leadership team meetings where they came in. They do receive a very small stipend for their time, depending upon the work, because we have to post it and we open it up. Sometimes, depending upon the amount of work and the type of work and what grants we have available, sometimes we offer them 45 PDPs, professional development points for relicensure. Sometimes if there's an outcome or a project, we'll give them 3 Ashland credits, which that's our version of graduate credits. And then typically there's a stipend for summer work. So some of our curriculum alignment work where we say we're looking for a vertical team, and they come in, we schedule times and we meet. And then they also have an opportunity to work at home, connect with their grade level people, and then come back. Summer is great to spread that out. But this particular team actually came in on their own volition. They were volunteers. They were so excited to have this moving forward to jump in September. They came and I said, we will work on PDPs and give you professional development points. And they're coming in again to continue because now they'll be, we're calling them mapping mentors in their buildings to help be that go-to person. So yes, in this particular instance, it was on their own goodwill.
And I'm thinking about you too, Kathy, as you're talking about, there's a lot going on for a person with your job this year, between the educator evaluation and the alignment, and you're able to still get grants. I'm just thinking, thank God it's this year and not last year, because you stepped up so much last year with Mr. Adams and Mrs. Duran, and it's so nice to be able to turn that corner and have you thank you so much for everything you did last year, but it's so nice to see you doing what you do and having the time and not having that extra added burden on you. So thank you.
We've been hopping, but it's great because not only do we have an excellent admin team that has been so supportive, and I will tell you, the building principals and I, if anything, we're on the phone or they're in my office, I'm in their office. We've done a lot of connecting, and not only at the district level where we're seeing all of the initiatives come together, it's nice to see where the state is finally getting to the point where all of the race to the top projects are fitting together and making sense. So it really does make one nice picture. So yes, we're loving this time where it all fits.
Yeah.
But thank you.
That's very nice to hear, too, because a lot of times we sit and we hear about all these different projects or all these little grants and all this work that you're doing. So it's nice to hear that it's all kind of accumulating and being all brought together, So that's a nice way to present it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, we are moving down to our action items, or future agenda items. And, I guess one of the things that Mark mentioned was this idea that there are a couple of possible nomination requests for field naming. Is that correct? So then our policy says that we need to, develop I believe it's an ad hoc, right? Committee to review, and I think it's pretty spelled out, so we don't have it here, but it's pretty spelled out in the policy who is on that, which is the superintendent. I know myself as a chair, but.
Well, the old policy that's attached to this document right here, naming of school department facilities.
Oh, yes, there it is. So, and it's the teacher, principal, and the citizen, so I don't know how,
I think you really only have the Lions request officially. As it's known as the Alcino request was retracted, and I have provided, they had asked me to tie in with Marshall Gary, the architect for the field, and give them some information on what they could do over in the baseball field. Not sent that over to them. And that's a little patio with some chairs and bushes and this and that, but by the time you're done with that, that's about $8,000. So I believe that they're revisiting what they might wanna do, so they haven't resubmitted it in writing for the policy, so. I only think you really have in writing is
The only one I have received in writing, that's correct, is the Lions Club. I guess I have a question about that process with the, so if they asked you to have something created or designed, how does that work? Because there's still this policy where they have to come before
They
this
still have to submit,
committee.
if whatever they do with that information, they still have to submit and say, look, we'd like to do this. They wanna know what the pricing was, it's gonna cost us this, we'd have to do that, we'd have to work it out with the town, cause the town would end up taking their money and paying the contractor who's on site to do that work, but none of that could happen until it was approved through the process. So they've done a little more homework. I mean, in essence, Warren in the game did some homework, cause they said, oh, what could we do? Just set a rock aside for us if we decide to do that. But bottom line, nothing can happen till you go through the process.
Right.
Which actually makes more sense, cause then they don't come here saying, we wanna do something. What should we do? We don't know what we wanna do, but we wanna do something.
Okay, so I think for an action item, Mrs. Fletcher, we can talk about that in next week's meeting about how we wanna develop that committee. You know, you will need a principal and a teacher and a community member. You, right? Yes, we know we're on it.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, the chair,
The
yeah.
other ones are,
It says you name, the
yeah.
chair names the, committee member.
is that what it says?
Citizen to be named by the chair.
Okay.
So how would you pick a citizen?
I don't know, that's why I wanna talk to Mrs. Fletcher about it, you know,
Do
it might be
citizens
something that
come
we
and
put
ask?
out and, ask, can we do a lottery, or, you know,
Yeah.
whatever, I don't know, that's what I'd like to talk to
You usually do
about.
lotteries, right, for hiring
Yes.
committees.
We've
It's
done
just-
lotteries for things in the past, so, okay, so we'll put that on here about developing the ad hoc committee for,
So is
nominations.
that committee gonna go forward even though we have a policy that's in place? Cause that's an interesting question, you're gonna have a lottery where we don't even have anything to sort of say that lottery should have someone who's, you know,
I think you have a
Interest in
letter
the
dated
field, have
before
it-
the policy is.
Right, the policy still exists as right now, in this moment. That's the policy we have to operate under until we vote on the new one.
or we could vote, oh, well, that's possible, or it seems to me we could vote to say that we are on, we have a policy that's under advisement, and it's not advisable to move on this until we finalize our policy. I mean, as a group, we could decide that we're gonna hold on, right?
Is there
Hold
a
on.
sense, is there a sense of rush, though, really?
If we set into process a committee, we set a process in motion that we then are wedded to. I'm concerned that we're gonna leave this meeting having never discussed that, and we're gonna have a policy, a committee set up that's gonna put something in motion that's gonna maybe be difficult to slow down.
Well, if they showed up today, I understand your point. If they showed up today with a letter, then I think you can start to have that discussion of, look, if for some other reason, we've already started looking at this, and we wanna wait till we resolve it. But both of the groups showed up some time ago with their original requests, and we've sort of, because of a different reason, we've sort of put them off to sort out those reasons.
Well, the issue is we have something brand new, so they've come forward, but the fact is that those brand new fields have not even been commissioned, they do not even belong to us. So the fact that they came forward, I mean, we've had this conversation before, they came forward, but we have fields that haven't been given to us yet, and we're, I feel as if we're being sort of pushed along before we've taken the proper time to set something in motion. This is new for this community to have all these new fields. We're not, we've acted on other requests, we've acted when there's been a room, we have rooms named for someone, or small things, but this is now this big new thing that belongs to our entire community.
Right.
The entire community has made a huge investment in these fields, and I'm feeling concerned that we're gonna put a process in motion when we have not taken the proper time on the policy.
Well, one way to do it then technically is because the fields haven't been commissioned, anybody who's written anything yet, we can't act on it because there's no finished field
I looked into that.
to name.
I
And
looked into that, and what you're gonna find in most of these policies that I've looked at is, that's when you do it.
that's when you,
The naming is done up front, so when the place opens up, it's
It has
opened
a
up
name.
as
Well, that might
Well, it could
be in
be.
how some people do it in practice, but the real, you know, what's really happening is we're being asked to name something that isn't.
Well,
Really?
for instance, the Lions request is to name a path after Mr. Hinchy. That path is in place. When they open up the field, they want that path to be Mr. Hinchy path. It's just like if we were building a brand-new middle school, by the time that middle school opened up, it would be Jimmy Smith Middle School.
But that hasn't been the case. I mean, when I went to the
No,
Front Street
no,
School,
that's-
it
no,
was the
hang on a
Front
second.
Street School. At some point, it got named the Henry
My point
Ward
is, if
School.
I'm gonna redo this policy, it's a very good chance you're gonna see language like that, cause that's what's in all the best
Language
in
like what?
class,
I'm not sure.
that that the naming is done ahead of the commissioning bit.
I would say that this policy shouldn't really necessarily, it should be silent
It's a
on that
category.
because
No, it's a
not-
category.
Well, okay, except that a lot of the stuff that we could name already belongs to us. We could
Right.
name the high school. It belongs to us. Someone could suggest a
Right.
name for the
That's a
high school. And
category.
it should be, I would think we should be consistent in how we name any of the things that.
All I'm saying is,
I guess I
the
just-
existing,
I guess
and that's
I
it,
don't
is
wanna
I
exist.
just
rush.
bring it up as
That's
a
all.
reason to give us some more
I
time
think
to
for me,
finish the
what I
policy.
really need out of this, and I know we had a little bit of this kind of similar conversation over the summer,
I just really need clarity, and I think we need to be consistent. It doesn't really matter to me. If we decide that this policy is on hold and being revised, and we're not considering anything until A, everything's been commissioned to us, and B, we have a solid policy, that's fine. I'm fine with that, but I need to know that that's what we have all voted to do, so that we can tell these people that are contacting us with regard to their nominations. People are kind of going out and retweaking what they were thinking about because of conversations or what they think might get passed and what might not, and, you know, I
I'd like
just
to make a
don't want
motion.
any of that. I
I'd like
wanna
to
know-
motion that that until such time we have a naming policy, a new naming policy in place, that this committee takes no action on any requests that come before us on naming, because we, as a committee, have decided that the policy we have in place is inadequate. And so, my motion is that we put on hold anything until we have a naming policy that we're all comfortable with. That's my motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
I would second it,
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye,
Nay.
nay. Opposed, not
Excuse
doing.
me there.
So we have, 4 in favor and, 1 opposed. So that passes. And that's what we'll do, and I have no problem with that, and I will get back to these people that, submitted and let them know that's where we stand.
And we have a
But
date, we have a
yes.
date, Mr. Jewett, you said that September 21st, you think you might have something ready for us, so it's not that we're putting this off until eternity, we have some dates that we're looking.
September 21st, you think?
We'll be able to, it's a brand new policy, so we'll be able to do a first read at the next meeting.
As long as we have that information in our packets ahead of time, so that we can all be up on it. Just saying.
I won't sleep till it's done, Madam Chair.
Excellent. Okay, so, what else, does anyone have anything for future agenda items? Or any action plans come out tonight? I know we talked about, and again, I know, Mrs. Clancy and Mrs. Kowski and I will be meeting next week, so there is a policy review, that is assigned, every policy at the bottom of it is assigned to someone to review it. And, we just really started it, I think, last year, that it was the whole year that it went, but, someone in the administration office kind of puts it out to whoever they are, the list that goes, yeah. And then I think it needs to be back by October 1st or around there, so, we can have that discussion about that going forward, but, it's not anything that really comes before all of us.
Did anyone talking as a future, we've talked about the forum for the community on the educator evaluation.
Okay.
Is that no, presentation on educator
Well, I think
evaluation?
that did come up in
It's
our
five, part
workshop.
two.
Five,
It's
part two.
five, part two.
That came up the other night at the workshop with, Mike
the same level of detail that you got the other night, though, quite frankly. I mean, it was a
Right.
lot of detail, and it's a lot.
Yeah. Right.
But I do think that it's important that people get the word out, that there's just a generic understanding. It doesn't have to be a thorough understanding, but a general topical understanding. And incidentally, I don't believe one's been done in the state to date, so
Oh, right.
this might be cutting edge.
Yeah, when we asked him that, he said, yeah, he didn't know of any, so
Didn't
that's
know
right.
any.
Right, and then I know we have this,
God forbid we
action
tell the
items
parents what's going
list,
on.
so we can just.
God forbid we tell the parents what's going on.
So we can go off this list when we set our next agenda. So I think that we are all set. We can go around with our committee member updates. I don't know if you wanted to start. I think you have sat in when some of these things, have you sat in and watched when, like Jesse, when we go around the table at the end of our meeting, we just kind of give any updates of things we want to share with the community. I know you obviously started school. I don't know if there's anything specific that you'd like to share. You would go first.
Not particularly. I think from a student's perspective, I think the start of the year has gone well. And I think the PBIS activity was very cool.
What was the activity?
We were there, we watched it.
I know, I just wanted to. I know that.
I missed it.
Yeah, so it was basically a scavenger hunt. We went to our homerooms and then we were redistributed. So there was a person from every grade on the team, and basically the teams went out with questions. They tried to return the answers. Whichever team got the most answers won something. I'm not sure what that was. Certainly wasn't my team. Yeah, but it was definitely cool to work with people from other grades. We got to really get to know each other. And yeah, I think the point of getting a person from every grade on the team was something that was pretty well done.
Was it just 4? One from each grade?
Right, so I think each room had 3 teams. I don't know if it was uniform, but it's basically it was subdivided into 3 sub-teams per room, and then 2 teams went out, and then 1 team stayed in the room.
And then, like, what were some of the things you had to find? Because we saw people looking, like, in the trophy case and on the Hall of Fame. But what were you asked to look
Yeah,
for?
so it was very diverse. Anything from which teachers got married over the summer, or what's the DA's definition of bullying, which is I didn't know it was actually hung up around the school.
I know.
Yeah, things like that, whether it had to do with staff members or the history of the school, when was the high school built, things like that.
Cool. Well, that's good. It's like a little
Yeah,
history
it was.
lesson.
They were having fun.
Yeah, everybody learned a little, yeah. It looked like the kids were having a good time when we were watching this, yeah.
Did you get out in the courtyard yet, or is that open, or is that due to open?
So during study, you can sign up at the main office to go to the courtyard. I actually haven't seen anyone use that yet.
It looks so nice out
yeah.
there. I would think it'd be popular.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe going to the main office during study is something that.
Maybe the sign up
Yeah.
needs to be somewhere else.
Right.
Can you go, like, could you go with your friends from your study? Can you go as a group? Or are there rules about, like, how many people can be out there at a time?
I'm sure you could try right now because no one signs up for it, but it's pretty limited in terms of the space, I think. So it might be difficult once people are aware that you can actually go and do that.
Well, now it's on TV and everybody will be watching.
Thank you. Mr. Judy?
All right, well, I think some big news is the decisions that every Turn Coalition got their word on the grant that they submitted, and while they did exceptionally well for a first-time grant, they didn't actually get awarded the grant. They scored very high. We got kudos on the grant, which is good because we'll be able to resubmit the same format and hopefully pick up on the few things we can improve for next year. So there's scheduled meetings every month. There's a lot going on. I'm sure you'll be hearing about events that they will be holding. I had the extreme pleasure of attending the special town meeting recently that resulted in a overwhelming majority, or better than 2/3, vote to support the finalization of the fields. So, sort of, at this point, what's going on is that the track surface is getting ready to be put down to finalize the track. There's some work being done to finalize the concession and how, facilities building. As you can tell, if you drive around the back here, the baseball field is now well ahead of schedule because they've had to reshuffle some of the planning. So the last little mound of dirt on the baseball field is about to go. They're gonna laser level the field by the end of the week and turn it over to the landscaper next week. So the baseball field's done, effectively done. So that's way ahead of schedule. And, but we are sort of at crunch time, trying to get the final pieces done up top of the hill. Hopefully to open Thanksgiving Day, which is we are home this year, so hoping to have quite a ceremony that day, and I'll be working on that event. And hopefully that'll kick off the opening of the complex. So.
Are they actually building that building now? Is that started?
They're getting ready to pour the foundation.
And that would be done by Thanksgiving, is that it?
Yes, that's the plan.
I saw little tables and chairs out there.
Oh, yeah, everything around. Yeah, there's a nice patio there, which will be outside of the concession stand window, and there's all bolted benches there. It's gonna be very nice. The other side of that patio is where the handicap access is to the stands. One other piece that has to be added to the stands is the press box, so that's on delivery. And but the final tire, or the final base for the track and the D ends is now in, so they're gonna do it inside of a couple weeks. They'll pour the final track, cause that has to cure. Next week, they're gonna do all the final fencing. You've noticed they've started to rip out a lot of the temporary fencing, so next week they'll finalize the final fencing around the complex. It's pretty amazing.
It's amazing.
Pretty amazing, so. We all have our fingers crossed that, Brady will be able to pull it together so we can open Thanksgiving Day. I mean, that will be very, advantageous for us from a standpoint of, some positive press around the community. We plan to, or we're working on planning to have quite an opening event, bring back some of the old heroes from the old days, mimic what you see on TV. It should be a fun event. It'll be great for the kids, it's gonna be a tremendous complex, and we'll drive into the middle school for and it's gonna be so nice for the system, and then the way, once it's done, I think the intent is to have, that's right, we're not here, if you're coming out the back of the gym, the parking lot on the very right, that'll be for sort of game officials and people working the game, a little small parking lot. The parking lot right at the entrance will be for seniors and people who need help get to the field, sort of deal. And then,
Senior citizens,
yeah,
not senior students, just.
No,
Yeah.
senior citizens. It's the community, and then the big parking lot on the left will be for. So if you come to an event, you're actually gonna get a little exercise, cause if you're going up to the football field, it's a little bit of a hike. If you're a visitor, it's a long hike, and if you're going to softball, bring your sneakers. That's the size of the complex. So it's pretty, it's looking good, so that's good. Then, don't forget Ashland Day, Saturday. And if you're in the business community and you wanna donate and get yourself a banner to hang up at one of the new fields, we'll be there, with the forms to fill.
Do you have a table?
I have a table, of course. Thank you.
I don't have too much to update, but I did go to that meeting on Tuesday that the Mike Gilbert came from MASC to help us understand the educator evaluator. So that was very good, very informative. And next week, this hasn't happened, but next week I think we all were invited to the Keith Tech is putting on a breakfast.
Oh, that's right.
And Brooke, you'll be there, and Framingham has a new superintendent?
Yes, Stacy Scott.
And then a new principal or something?
New town manager.
Oh, town manager, that's what it is, okay. So I'm planning on going to that,
Yes,
And Jerry Leote is gonna be speaking at that.
That's correct.
I'm looking forward to that, and then I can work on that.
And can I ask, did you get invitations to the Brazilian Community Center? Because
No,
that's,
I didn't.
that's
Oh,
at night?
yes.
Those events are on the same day, right? One's in the
there?
morning, one's at night?
I didn't get that one.
I did get that one, yeah, oh, yeah.
The
It actually sounds
Brazilian
pretty
community?
interesting.
It's,
might have
it's
missed
right
it.
across the street from the Framingham.
I think I did.
Train station. Yeah, it
Yes,
came a while
that
ago.
one came a while ago.
But I believe that's at night and this one's in the morning, right?
But I didn't get that. Yes, this is morning, 8:30.
Yeah, so the Brazilian
I'll
ones.
copy it to you.
Yeah, can you ask it to me as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't mind going, it sounds interesting, but
It
I don't
does.
wanna go by myself. Well, just because
No, I know.
I don't know how to go.
I actually am busy
Yeah.
that night, so.
But apparently, actually I drove by there today and I noticed it reminded me, and apparently they've redone the building, it's supposed to be nice, so.
Is it a Friday night though? 'Cause
That's
isn't
Friday
it
night.
Friday night, we got football.
Oh, it is
I was
Friday.
gonna say I'll go with you, but that's probably
I
I
do
don't
not know
think-
way that
timing is,
Friday
but-
night.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at it, but I mean, if it works out timing wise, I'd be happy to go, but we'll see.
All right, thank you.
Well, I was at that thing, but also, the convocation. I went to the convocation, which is always kind of fun. It's an interesting way to start the year. And, Lori mentioned also that we had that meeting tonight, which we're kind of looking forward to the policy piece. And that's really all I have.
I went to the first decisions at every turn meeting, and again, while it was disappointing not to get the grant, I mean, my personal feeling, not that I have any idea what really happened on the other end, nobody knows, but I think that, it probably just went to a community that maybe right now needed it more than we did, because these ladies put so much effort and work into writing this grant. It's unbelievably the amount of time and effort and dedication. This is really important to them, and I know Claudia and Amy and everybody who helped them have had sleepless nights, preparing things, and they really did a first-class job. They got a score of a 92, and which is really high, which basically means that there was nothing wrong with the application.
Which normally is funded. Normally that would have been funded.
Right, and they were told that if it were a normal year and funds had not been cut back. So, it really is an amazing amount of work that they do and dedication, and they definitely could use some help. So if anyone in the community is interested in, joining the coalition or just attending a meeting to see what it's all about, there are just a lot of different things you can get out of it. You can volunteer in lots of different ways. They're building the website and,
And they have a booth at Ashland Day.
They will
So
have a
you can
booth at
stop by
Ashland
there
Day.
and go sign up to join.
We're expanding, we always have a couple of high school kids that attend, and then last week, we had Neha Shabir attend again, who we've met on this committee a couple times. She's come before us for a couple different reasons, but she's also been on the cable show twice now. She participated in the coalition contest, and she was one of the winners both years, and the program is showing now, featuring her and some of the other students. And they all did a great job, and it's just so much fun to work with them. But it's nice, she came to the meeting with her mom, and a student in town who goes to Keefe came, young man, maybe about, 15, 16, a freshman, who's gonna help us build the website. So it's really nice to see, the group, expanding, and anybody's welcome. So that was the coalition. The convocation, we attended that. We got to see you guys running around in your scavenger hunt because we ended up a little early. And that was a nice day. We went to opening day. I don't think we mentioned that yet, Brooke. And Mrs. Clenchy gave a great presentation. It was very
Thank you.
entertaining and very motivating, and it was really nice to come back with a fresh start for this year. And it was really nice to be there. And it was a job well done. I went to the first football game, and we won. Yes, it was very exciting, a nice positive way to start the season, and it's gonna be so exciting if we get on that field for Thanksgiving Day, and now's a good time, Mark, you put so much effort, I think it's probably been at least a couple of years that I know of, maybe even more than that, to be part of making this happen, so thank you for that. It's huge that we are having these beautiful facilities.
It's unbelievable.
And you've been a big part of that.
A lot of folks spend a lot of
I know
time
there's
trying
been
to
a
get
lot,
this
but
deal
I
done.
see you, so I'm thanking you, and you can bring it back to everyone else and thank them. It's it's amazing, it's so exciting. And what else did we do? It feels like there's policy meeting today, and that's it, so far.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's only been a couple of weeks, but it seems like 3 or 4 months.
I
It does.
know,
It feels
it
like a lot's
does.
been going on.
It seems like a
Oh, and
lot.
the educator evaluator thing, which most of us were able to get there. That's it.
Excellent. Well, I've been to some of the things you mentioned and some of the things I wasn't able to attend. And opening day was one of the things I wasn't able to attend, although I had heard wonderful things about Mrs. Clunchy's presentation, as well as your welcome. So it was very well received, and people felt really positive. And I think it sounds like, even though I was sorry to miss it, that everything was really fun and
We have a
welcoming.
CD that
Oh,
you're
that's
welcome
what I
to.
heard. Yeah.
You do?
There you I would love to watch it.
$6.95.
Yeah.
But for you.
Of course, yeah. And so, I have been at a lot of this other things with other members, convocation and, the education workshop, obviously, but, and Ashland Day is coming up. I did have that on my list, and I think that's a great time. A lot of the kids, sell things or have a booth or are there, and a lot of these organizations, the Ashland Education Foundation usually has a table, and I know the Coalition has a table, and AshPAC often has a table, so there's a lot of our parent organizations that, support our schools that are also there, either selling something or handing out information, more about their organization, trying to get more people interested and more people signing up, so really try to get out to Ashland Day if you can. And the only other thing, I know I am doing a community coffee, that is for the decisions at every turn. Coalition, that's a piece of what we do, which actually the young man that, is volunteering to do the website, we did a coffee in his home last year.
Oh, you did?
And that's how his parents heard about it, and that's how he got on board. So, we're always these little inroads, but we do have a community coffee scheduled at Parents Home next week. So
And
that
you're
will be.
facilitating?
Yes, myself and Kara Tyrell, yes. Yeah, so it's exciting, and then the first home football game is tomorrow night, right? So I have all these fun things on
It's
my
not
schedule.
home.
Oh, it's not?
I don't think so.
Oh, I thought it was.
It is home? Tomorrow at 4:00? I thought it was like in.
That brings me to, a question about the bugs.
Boston or
Oh,
something.
I was in
Hopkinton yesterday. Hopkinton has canceled
Canceled
all
all
their.
that.
Actually,
Yesterday, too.
I can probably do a bit of an update, and I don't know
Okay.
whether Barbara would like to,
Go
no,
to-
okay, then I'll do the update on that. Mark, Mark Warren? Yes. I actually received several emails from him today and several different memos. Thank you for bringing that up, because I meant to mention that earlier, and I forgot all about it, actually. We're right now at a moderate risk level, so right now, there's nothing that they're telling us that we need to be doing. They're monitoring it. I give him a lot of credit. He's certainly staying right on top of it. He's attending all of the webinars on it right now, and is staying very, very closely linked to our state partners. So that's really what we're waiting for from the direction. He had a very long chat earlier today with our AD, Mr. Quigley. So that happened. Then I spoke with Mr. Quigley, and then connected back and forth several times with Mark. So I think at this point in time, just to say, we are on top of it, we are watching it, we're just not ready to make a move at this second, as of just before I walked in here tonight. So, but that's a great question, because other areas are making some changes or making some dramatic changes to their schedules. We're one of the districts that does not have to at this moment, and there are a couple of us that are kind of all in the same category, and so they're kind of lumping us somewhat together.
So those towns that have canceled things, it's because they're in a higher risk?
That's absolutely correct.
That's because they did find mosquitoes, infected mosquitoes in Ashland, and some parts of town were sprayed, I think it was Monday, right?
Yes, that may well be, but you're absolutely right. They've got different pools that they're going to and taking samples from. You're absolutely right.
So it's based on findings of infected mosquitoes, that's how they determine?
That's correct. That's my understanding.
And if that changes, obviously, that's.
It'll be an email blast.
Connect one of those calls.
Or
Or,
internet, yeah.
yes, or both.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's good to know, thank you. Did you have?
No, I don't think that, I think think I've probably spoken enough tonight to, no. I just want to send a huge thank you to everyone. I've gotten so many wonderfully welcoming emails and phone calls and meetings, and it's been incredibly busy. The admin team has just been fantastic to work with. Our staff has been fantastic to work with. You know, we've had a great start. I mean, if I had to take a look at the district at large, it wasn't that one school started a little slower than another. Everybody started off just with a wonderful, positive, a sense of infusion of energy and synergy, and it's been a great start. It's been very, very busy, and as you can hear us talk about, whether it's Edwin or the various curriculum workshops, or implementing the Atlas or the educator evals, we implement Teach Point. I mean, we didn't really talk about Teach Point tonight, but when we go to do our public session, when we talk about the educator eval, it'll come up at that point in time. The whole idea of SMART goals and training our staff on SMART goals. SMART is an acronym, S.M.A, you know. And so I think that I can see us doing some of that when we go to do a public in-service, if you will, educator eval. But no, I just would like to send out a wonderful welcome, or a thank you to everyone who's been so welcoming to me. It's just been incredible. I'm just loving it.
Excellent. Mrs. Duran, did you have
I don't want to repeat anything that you've already said, but the one thing I do have is the Town Manager Search Committee met last week. I am an ex officio member of that committee, so I get to sit on it, and I'm allowed to speak and voice my opinions, but I don't have an actual vote, but that's okay. And it's a great group. We're meeting again next week, and they're trying to put together a community forum on the 27th of the month, so we'll be getting some information out there. We're trying to get input, what people in the town are looking, what qualities they're looking for in the next town manager. So that group is getting started.
Excellent.
Well, that's search committee for you to sit on? You didn't have enough. Well, you don't have to run this one. This one you just.
Boy, we probably kept busy enough with those.
We got used to see some different faces on that one.
The only other tidbit I'd toss out there, we also had PTO meeting this week, the first PTO meeting, very well attended, about 30
Wow.
parents, planning a booth also for Ashland Day, and planning some fantastic activities throughout the year for our students.
Great.
So if you get the little flyers, please consider joining the PTO.
Thank you.
Just one final thing too. I really didn't make any mention this evening of working so closely with Barbara Durant. It has just been a delight. I just so enjoy our time together, and I know the three of us spend a fair amount of time together too. But certainly Barbara and I probably spend more time together than anybody else in the district, and it's just been such a pleasure. She's such a gift to the district, and such a gift now to me as a resource for the district. So I would want to put that out there too.
And I feel the same.
Thank you. Excellent. All right, so, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Yeah.
And second, and all in favor?
Aye. All right. Is there any, did you want, do we not?
No, just brings it.
All right. So we are adjourned.